All right, another 19 minutes on the clock. Had to abruptly end that last video. I didn't set my timer, so I probably went on for like 40 minutes. But that's it for that segment. After that 40 minute, I kind of got tired. I didn't do another 19-minute segment, and so that was a good test that if I'm hypomanic in that kind of fast, flighty state, I can sit in front of a camera and, talk 20 minutes at a time until I get tired. So there's very few things that I can actually do to go from really energetic states where I have no idea when I'm going to get to sleep, and have an activity where, heck yeah, I know I can probably get to sleep in the next 3 hours or a couple hours. So that was a success, and this will be a good kind of juxtaposition. I mean, from my perspective, I don't think there is much change. Maybe more calm, more pauses, but yeah, I got a lot of sleep. If I was still really excited though, game on. It's like I still want to get some points across and talk a lot. But I was just really glad because I was in a hypomanic state. So that last video, I went a full day, only slept almost 1 to 2 hours, and then went another full day plus, kind of like a day and a half before I actually got to sleep. But after that video, I got 2.5 hours. No. After that video, yeah, it was perfect. It was 4 a.m. That's kind of my classic time. I love to sleep in the morning into the day. And I just won't wake back up. Even if I go to the bathroom, I can just go right back to bed. I'm just kind of out. And so I got 12.5 hours. Woke up at 4 p.m. and it was nice. I thought, well, and it's always tough to wake up like in the evening. It's winter time, so you're kind of waking up and then it's kind of dark, like right off the bat. Shoveled some snow. I had to take care of that, so it's nice to have some business and employment. It's kind of self-employment, but I was glad I have that, just because it kind of keeps me on point sometimes. But that night, 11 p.m. came, so I was up from 4 p.m. to 11, only up for 7 hours, and I was ready to catch the bus. I call it catching the bus, kind of the sleep bus. Had I got onto my computer for another couple hours or did something like that, you can lose that, maybe that, I don't know what they call it, that melatonin high, low, I have no idea, but you can really lose it to some of those blue screens. And it doesn't have to be that. I pick up some, activity that I'm excited about. I might not be able to go to sleep. But I was able to go back to sleep at 11 p.m., but I only got 2.5 hours of sleep. So whenever I go to bed at 11, 10, that's never a good time for me to go to bed, because I'm only looking at 3 hours of sleep, 2.5 hours. That's kind of on average. So I woke up at 1:30 a.m., so now what? And I was still really tired. I was like, I got the 12.5, and then I was up for 7, I got another 2.5, but I was just really tired, so I used the other strategy. Haven't been a big book reader until this last year, and I've already read 6 novels. Reading Jack Reacher, he writes in a way that's super easy to read, and it's page turning. So I was never a fiction reader. I always kind of wanted to grasp concepts. I wanted to educate myself a little bit, but man, novels kind of where it's at for entertainment, and it's better than movies, that's for sure. Whatever. It's 39. It's a long time in life to go without reading a lot of books, but I'm glad I'm started. Like I said, 6 novels, and then I can even read other books on the side. I've read 2 other books on the side in between those Jack Reacher novels. So cracked open the book, and this is a technique. If I if I read in bed, kind of with the headlamp, and I'll even make meals because you get hungry, you know. So I'll make some meals, kind of some simple or full. Yeah, I think I had a full dinner and or full meal. Read some books. Went to bed at oh, so that was only like a 3-hour period. I woke up at 1:30. I went back to bed at 5 a.m. So there's 3.5 hours there of reading, eating, mainly reading though. Then I went to bed for another 11 hours. So that was a long way to say that I got 12, 2.5, and then 11 hours of sleep. So 26 hours of sleep in a very short window. So, you know, kind of almost like a one-day window, 26 hours. You know, in a 36-hour cycle, I got 26 hours of sleep. That was kind of new. So that was good. But now, you know, maybe the conversations we'll have tonight will be a little bit different. Maybe you can see any difference between kind of that mania. Like right now, I just don't have a whole lot of, you know, I got more structured topics to talk about. And I just kind of want to recap, kind of like, I still do, you know, have all the categories of topics in my head that I have opinions on, I guess, to put it that way. You know, like, yeah, my parents were excited because I had to like realize, like I was telling my folks, I was just like, yeah, I'm making a video of showing myself in a hypomanic state, and I know that your end of the camera, there's plenty of people out there who's like, oh, I don't like that, you know, especially since this person is trying to do this med-free. You know, it's just like, what are you advertising for other people to be med-free? It's like, no and yes, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be the only person that's like trying to figure this shit out, you know what I mean, with my own solutions. It'd be nice to hear other people's solutions, you know, because if you don't have it, you know, it's like, then your opinions aren't very good solutions. So that's the thing with stigma. It's like, if you're on the outside looking in, your opinion is potentially not a solution. So so that's where, yeah, it would be nice. I mean, that's why I'm making this for other people, you know, with that caveat that, you know, I'm 15 years into this. I always wanted to be off meds, and for the first 5, I was on meds for a year, off meds for a year, but in the hospital for a couple weeks, and then on meds for another year, off meds for a period, into the hospital for 2 weeks. You know, so that cycle repeated itself, and your life falls apart. You know, it's like, if you have friends, you're probably gonna lose them. If you have, you know, relationships, they're gonna fall apart. That's the tricky thing with mental illness. Every time you have, you know, it feels like your life can fall apart very easily. But I guess the people who, you know, that's why I came back to that point. It's like you know, the true friends are out there. It's just like, I don't care. It's like, I'm not gonna hold your hand or anything, but hey, you do. You're still my friend. You know what I mean? Like, that's the type of people. I don't know. That just seems like a really good thing to have in life. Is like, even on the river, I mentioned, you know, it's nice to go on river trips with people that can kind of take care of themselves, but I can help. You know, we're all gonna do our parts. But if any one of us dies, it's, you know, it's like, whatever. It'll be easier phone call to make home. You know, you want to go on Everest with people that you don't mind dying, or you want to go down a river with people that you don't mind. Because and I mentioned that I'm not good at taking family members down the river. Made a big mistake taking my dad. You know, he's like 70. It took him an IK down. You know, I guess what would be during the normal season a class 4 run, but at lower water. Yeah, she was, I mean, it's class 3, but it's like, dang, you're going to flip over at some holes. And then if it's, you know, you're going to get graded down some shallow rapids. So there was just some key areas, you know, I had to coach on the spot, and it ain't fun. You know, I was just kind of coaching. I was like, oh, no, okay, we need to do this. And you know, it's almost like I apologize. I mean, that's one step. Be brutally honest. Like, I mean, I wasn't that day. I was just in this state of like, damn, we got to make this. We got to make it. It's like, you can't swim here, but I'm going to be right here to pick you up. You know, this is where I want you to be. And then it's real difficult because, you know, it's like, that's the thing with teaching is like, you're going to teach someone something and then they're not going to do it. You got to be okay with that. So that's another good thing about it, being a good teacher is like knowing they're going to mess up. So then, you know, what should the instruction be? That's why I did that breath. You know, it's like if what's going to kill you is you can't hold your breath for 10 seconds, you know, because you get caught under the boat for 3 seconds and you panic and breathe water. You know, it's like, well, it would have been good on land to actually get yourself into an uncomfortable situation of practicing, like, exhaling, holding your breath for 10. You're like, dude, this sucks. Like, my mom did it, you know, and she's also 70 and on, you know, medicine for her heart. And, you know, hopefully I didn't push her to a limit. But she's like, that was very uncomfortable. So that's, you know, it's like one thing you wouldn't do like commercially with guests, but to a degree, I don't know, like if I'm there and it's a sunny day and you're doing the safety talk and yes, it's like 100 degrees out and you're having people hold their breath and then getting lightheaded. I know I do get vertigo now and it's a pain in the ass, and like I can get in a river if I tip upside down. Like even every time I go to bed I have to like make sure I don't kind of roll myself up the correct way for vertigo. So that's been kind of a chronic thing. So that's the only thing is like if you're gonna have an exercise in a safety talk that's gonna put someone, you know, kind of get them lightheaded or dizzy, then that, you know, for the rest of the day those symptoms are gonna carry, then that's not good. But just it's always on my agenda. It's just like, well, how do you, like, what's the best way to give information and keep people alive on a river trip, or just fuck it, wing it. You know what I mean? It's like the people, the guides that are maybe don't have to think about that or don't think about that. Like I said, they're probably gonna. Well, yeah, it's like how much are you gonna think about risk, and how much is that gonna cause you to like not make it fun? So it's kind of an interesting balance. Yep. But yeah, that death topic though, I mean, I bring it up with my parents all the time and they seem to be just fine with it. So it just seems to be fine with talking about it through a lens. It's an uncomfortable topic. People don't like to talk about it. But I mean, in life, you know, like one of the goals should be like, well, do something where you could feel like, yeah, I did enough. You know what I mean? And you could do that at whatever age, you know. And it's like, and you should do that at whatever age, because, you know, no one knows when statistics are going to catch up with you, and people are going to die young, die middle age, die old age. So I just think it's good, you know, in my mind. But then it's the other side of that is like, if I'm satisfied, I want other people on the other side of that lens to be satisfied too. You know, I definitely, my ears perk up when I hear, you know, it's like when Alex, I forget his last name, I apologize. Hope I'm even saying his first name right, but the solo climber, Alex Honnold, solo climbing. And, you know, his loved ones would be like, you know, it's like, I wouldn't be able to take, you know, it's like, I wouldn't be able to, and that's honest. Like, that is classically what death is. Death is for the living. You know, if someone dies, no one's affected. The dead ain't affected, because they're already dead. Just the living are affected. But it's like, if you don't have these conversations prior, you know, it's like, so maybe Alex Honnold's, you know, it's like they already have to come to terms with that maybe on a daily basis, and maybe it's hard for them because it's like you're potentially around the living dead, you know. It's like, you know, you have this individual that statistically something might catch up to him, and, you know, and I feel like I want to fall into that category too. I have a very short-term I don't know. It's like like mania can kill you. You can do risky activities and you can die from mania. Anything that creates suicidality, you know, that can kill you, right? And so mental illness, there's definitely a percentage of people that die from suicide. Yeah, and I'm fine with hearing perspectives. I mean, because even one of my perspectives, if I'm suicidal, is give myself a 5-year plan. You know, it's like if stuff is so bad, like right now, you know, it's like, because like in a sense that death is that freedom. So it's like it can be. I mean, obviously you're in a paralyzed state to like. But even one day, I'm like I just couldn't take it, so I just decided to drive to Missoula. You know, I was underslept and stuff, and it might be dangerous on the roadways, but I drive slow when I'm manic or in those states. But yeah, I just needed to get out, and I use that for other people. I was just like, so if you are suicidal, like what, you know, like what can you do to have some escapism, to feel free, you know. Yeah, I didn't talk about this last night, but I mean, I have a lot of coin things. Like I'm not married, but I just know how really difficult it would be to have mental illness and a relationship. And I think about what types of, you know, people that have mental illness, like who do they seek out? Are they seeking out someone that also has mental illness because they both get each other? Or does that just compound the issue, and is it nice for, I mean, also what I see is, you know, someone with mental illness marrying or in a relationship with someone that doesn't have mental illness. So then you have someone that's kind of like maybe the rational side, kind of that balance, you know, so I see that as well. For me, anything that's going to pique my anxiety, I'm just honestly, it's like that's not for me. But I do have tried relationships kind of once every couple years, once every 3 or 4 years, and they're short, you know, it's like, and that's fine. And they're not short on purpose. I mean, just, yeah, it's just when you're 39 and then find someone else that's 39, it's like, I mean, I'm brutally honest. It's just like, well, why are you single? You know what I mean? So it's like you both got issues bringing to the table. It's not like you're in your 20s. Yeah, so, I mean, jokingly, that's why I was just like, yeah, divorce is excellent. So telling my friends that, it's like, yeah. No, there's like, don't get divorced. I'll swoop right in. But yeah, divorce is great because it floods the dating pool. So that's the good thing about divorce. And floods the dating pool with people that potentially, you know, for whatever, they were pretty good at relationships or whatever. But anyway, just different ways to think of things. Yep, so it's winter, kind of, I just have a list of things, whatever. But yeah, mental illness is paralyzing, I kind of mentioned that. Like, in the summer times, I do a lot better. One of the projects I have kind of doing all my work from home, or doing all my work, kind of jobs that I create through kind of family. My direct family, mom and dad. 19 minutes. Yeah, so I found, like, about 10 different ways to kind of make money or do actual work that is of value. And for the last 3 years, I've been working on a piece of property. It's 2 acres. It's owned by aunt and an uncle and my dad. Those are the 3. We used to use it as kids, cousins, you know, 20 years ago, but then we just never used it and it got all overgrown. So I honestly did 3 years of landscaping on 2 acres, chainsaw, you know, brush cutting, that type of work, really thinning, and then getting down to kind of like manicuring, like what. But anyway, the story is I've been going out there in the summertime, and it's just nice. That is the opposite of paralyzing. I really do like having a commute to work. I worked at the ski area, so that it was kind of nice, and it's just. I guess it is a nice way to gravitate when you actually get to drive somewhere. It's like away from town. And then, you know, if you forget something, you got to figure it out. But at this cabin, at this acreage, there's just so many different projects. So every time I go up there, you know, I got something to do. And it's very satisfying. If I only work 4 hours, literally, it's like I worked, you know, a full 8-10 hour day. It can be that way. You know, can really feel, I mean, just from the satisfaction, and that's really important to have satisfying work. I mean, there's plenty of jobs where you're just like, dude, I think I've been here 8 hours and I don't feel like I've like made a dent, or I don't know. So I've always, and keep that in mind if you ever need like a mental job like that. You know, up at the ski area, I was a rental shop, so you're just constantly sizing up skis, and then during the off-season tuning skis. So, you know, kind of very satisfying work, I guess. Picking litter, I don't know, just like once you get done, you can see a result. Even my neighbor next door, he's just like, yeah, you're out there, you mow the, you know, because my parents kind of own properties like all in a row on our block, apartments and a house. And then I just take on the other apartments up the street. So basically I have like half a city block that I do maintenance for. And I mean, honestly, it's not that big of a deal in the summertime. For mowing, it's 1 day a week. And it can be down to just 4 hours, you know. It's like 4 to 6 sometimes if you do a little bit extra. But 4 hours you can just mow, you know, the entire city block. And I don't know, my neighbor is just like, wow, it's just like within a couple hours, like, there's so much visually you got done, and you know, he mentioning that from a little bit of jealousy. His work is not that way. I don't even ask him what. I'm not very good at asking what people do. Well, especially if they're quoting that it's not that exciting. So I don't want to bring up the demons. No, but that is it's nice to have very satisfying work like that. But yeah, so I mentioned that I kind of want to like wrap up my thoughts on like on death, because I mentioned, you know, it's just like I got emotional when I was just like, man, for me, it's just like I see of like one river trip that Dane Jackson would go on. You know, it's just like if the average boater, you know, would get themselves to that level. But then that's the process. It's not just doing one of those trips. It's like that whole process of learning how to do like a Class 5 run, or like a big adventure. Like I went down the Grand Canyon, you know, with, you know, maybe some would say just enough skill. You know, maybe I even would say that I had, but in some areas I had over, I don't know, like, yeah, I had the right amount of skill, especially when it came to swiftwater rescue. And then just common sense, like other boaters, after I did that trip, there was one person, he got a January permit just because, yeah, you're going to pull a trip in January pretty easily. It's frigid. It can be snowy. You got to wear dry suits. And he was going to do it in a pack raft. And he's like, what pack raft should I buy? It was just like real red flags. I was like, well, the pack raft you've been using for the last 10 years, that pack raft. And that wasn't, he never pack rafted before. And then so I just kind of basically told him, it's like, well, if that's your test, it's like, don't do that. But if you're thinking about it, like, go find your biggest Class 4 high water run and make sure you flip 3 times, and, you know, even get separated from your boat, swim after it. Like, do those things so you can actually feel how terrifyingly powerful the river is, to where you're just like, you know, so you're not going to give up in those situations. So yeah, that's the issue. That's the thing. It's like rafting is so interesting. You can watch it from the videos, but then you're like, once you get back to that river, even if it's just Class 3, you're just like, you hear the rapids. Like, that's what I kind of like about it. It is intense, almost uncomfortably intense, like almost to the point where it's not fun, because like you're fighting for, like, especially when I'm R1 rafting, some of these like you're just like, I do not want to flip in that wave, or I just don't want to be over there. And in a raft, paddling with one paddle, like I'm fighting, just using every technique I have to like get where I want to be, and that's going to be your novice boater. It's mid-season, you know, good juicy flows, class 3, class 4 rivers, kind of the more popular runs, and you're kind of a novice guide and you're trying to get your boat down those lines into those positions without just flipping your entire crew. It's nerve-wracking, you know. It's not like it's interesting because it doesn't seem like it's gonna work, and you got to really work hard to make it work. And then even when I flipped on the lock side, I was just like, we flipped, and I was like, well, we might flip again. I mean, like, you know, it's like, and that was really tiring for all of us. So it's like, you have a choice. The road's right there. You don't have to, at any point, you don't have to go down. But I just, you know, let you know. And then, you know, we did it through Locksaw Falls, but, you know, that's where that emotion comes in. It's just like, yeah, kind of right in the analytics. Like, we're going to flip again, but, you know, it's like we don't. So, yeah. If the more actually brutally honest I get, the more it's actually kind of funny, and it can be kind of a fun or a game. So I can use that to my tactics to just be like, oh yeah, could happen. But anyway. But yeah, I don't know what people think about death, you know what I mean? Like, I just know with mental illness, it changes your world, you know, you're just like, whoa, it's like, it's a handicap, you're just like, this is tricky, life is tricky, it's no longer like, oh, I'm just gonna go through all the hoops, I'm here to here to here, and then just kind of go along. That's why I coined the term, it's just like a decade with mental illness is a lifetime. It's like, this shit is crazy, you know what I mean? Like every 10 years you gotta reevaluate, and that's why I say if you're suicidal, maybe 5 years, you know, use that shorter window, like go, you know, 5 years is a long time, but at least, you know, do what you need to do to set yourself free. Like if you're in a shit situation that you don't need to be in, you know what I mean? Like that's what it's like, quit your job before you quit your life. Like that should be obvious. Like, I mean, if you're suicidal, it's like, damn, quit your job, go on, get your government, you know, disability, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and quit your family before you quit your life, you know? It's like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, sometimes your family is not going to be the best support. Luckily mine is, but they'll tell you it's a constant battle. I mean, it's a constant reevaluation, educating both sides. Yeah, especially from me on the mental illness side, like, you know, if like a parents with a home and stability, they don't want to lose that. So this happens a lot where people with mental illness have substance addictions and they can't live with their parents. Like the parents shouldn't allow them to. It's just too much. So, but it's a devastating situation. It's like, how do you let go of someone? And that's why I kind of get back to that. Is just like your true, like, I can't speak as a parent, but I can be like, well, why don't you? Like, I don't understand why you don't, but like, why don't you be that friend that don't care if your kid's in prison for 2 years? You know what I mean? Because there's plenty of parents that their kids are in prison for 2 years and then they're going to see them. You know, so it's just like, it's not, I mean, that true friend is, I don't care, like, whatever you did, it's like, you know, it's like, I just think, oh, and this whole topic revolves around this, like, issue of control, which I had to kind of escape from with mental illness, but then I also, you know, did the hard work, met my parents kind of at the halfway marks, and we learned together of like what I need with mental. I knew exactly what I need with mental illness like the first few years. It's just like, yeah, after that second episode, I'm getting a job. Wanted to still live on my own in Seattle, but I'm picking litter on the freeway. Like I was so happy that job came up. Like I'm a college graduate, engineering. Like really love that high level mathematics, kind of. And that's another, I just want to make more videos on that if I got a chance. It would be really successful, and I don't mind even just doing this in this storyboard format. I'm just shooting it because, I mean, it's so bizarre. And I don't know if this is for a lot of graduates, college graduates, where you're just bombarded with information and you go back and you're like, wait. Like in any subject, even in schools, like, you're like, wait, what are the fundamentals? Like, if I only knew like one thing, and I really boiled it down to like guessing. It's like the average guy who goes to the hardware store is like way smarter than the engineer of like when they're picking bolts, you know, or bolts and nuts. They're just like, yep, look at that one, that should do it, you know. And then just that guessing is like almost 10 times better than asking the engineer to be like, well, what bolt size should I get? And you're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, you know how analytical that is? You know how many variables I have to figure out? But anyway, that was kind of like that was my first wake-up call. I'd get those questions right out of college, and I would just be floored. I was like, oof. It's like either didn't teach me right, or it shouldn't be more complicated. And 20 years later, it's very interesting going back to the books to be like, no, this should be way more simple. And so I have a lot of cool ways to make it simple. But yeah, I don't know. So like, yeah, do people feel the same way about like, hey, I did this one cool thing and I'm ready to die? I mean, like, I'm just satisfied. Like, if I think that's one goal in life, to be satisfied at some checkpoints. You know, like not all of them, but like knowing that we're all not going to live to be 100. Statistics are going to bell curve us all out. So, and I'm just really I'm glad to have those conversations with my parents, and I don't know, because like, I mean, 5-10 years ago, I would have definitely thought I might not outlive them. I don't know. It's like, I haven't been always super suicidal, and still not, but it's just knowing how devastating mental illness is, and not knowing if you can beat the odds, like, and just knowing kind of those scary situations. Even this running the Grand Canyon by myself, like, brought up the same fears out of my brothers. They're just like, he can't do that. Like, one, he can't do that. I just got out of the hospital a month earlier, but like I said, it's like, but that whole month I was like, damn, made a huge mistake. Now I need to know what I do, and then I do it. Like, I get sleep, you know what I mean? So that was, and I got every night of sleep on the Grand Canyon. Luckily, I had a little common cold like 2 weeks before. I was actually in a pretty crappy, like, I was definitely, you know, just full snot. I was really, you know, sore throat driving down to the Grand Canyon. But the nice thing about that is I was able to kind of get sleep. Even boating for the first half of that trip was just, I was just sick, you know. I was just like, just using all the vitamins and using all my tools to keep myself halfway healthy. You know, that you can't tell from the video. But that puts up, I knew exactly how things are going to go. So now it's just good for me to have those red flags when I know things aren't going to go well. When I'm just like, no, there's no chance in hell I'm going to get, you know, the next 8 nights of sleep solid. You know, I'm going to have issues, so this is a no-go. But after that Grand Canyon trip, since it was so close, it was just a month after being the most schizophrenic I've ever been. 6 nights on the Middle Fork, lost all those of sleep. Just life-changing from the perspective is just like, damn, I don't want that. So I'm going to work really, not that I don't want it and it's not going to happen again, but my goal is just like, no, I want to figure out sleep. Like, sleep, I'm sure there's a Kanye quote that's like, I'm not bipolar, I just have a sleeping disorder, and that's 100% accurate to my scenario. Yeah, even if today I was smelling something that's not there, it's not gonna affect me that much because I have plenty of sleep. I'm not, you know, as lucid and captured by hallucinatory events. Yep. But I do remember being, so I'm always a little bit suicidal minded, like, or just like satisfied enough where it's just like, you know, I'm either like worried about dying or like satisfied with dying soon. That was the first time I digitized all my grandma's still alive, but I was digitizing all of her affects, so like photos. My grandpa had slides, so I was able to set up my camera, digitize all those to like a really professional level. And I thought I almost got it all done right before the Grand Canyon trip, and it was just such an amazing thing to kind of compile that I was just, I just had that. I was like, oh, I feel satisfied if I die. You know, it's just like, what a legacy I just left right there. Like, so that was enough, you know. But then I actually get back, and that was like the tip of the iceberg. There was at least half or more stuff to actually digitize, organize. You know, in the next 3 years, Grandma passed away just this last year, but finally kind of getting all that done. So it's just kind of interesting in life where you think you're like at a stopping point and like, no, that was just the tip of the iceberg. So I keep that in my mind the next time I feel like, oh, I just did something that, you know, that was the pinnacle. It's like, I'm totally satisfied. That's not a bad thing. Being satisfied and satisfied to die, even if those are kind of the two same feelings, it's like that's a good thing. You know, because I mean, if you want the fire under your booty, you know, if like you're not satisfied, it's like, well, damn. It's like you don't have to have mental illness to quit your job, you know, or even like quit something toxic. You know, you don't have to have mental illness. Like I said, you know, if you get divorced, it's only gonna make my life a little easier. Maybe the dating pool is gonna get a little larger. So, you know, all the things that are kind of these taboo topics, you know, they have a bright side. But yeah, so that puts some frame of reference of why I got so emotional on, like, you know, like Dane Jackson. Yeah, I got emotional right when I mentioned something about Dane Jackson, but he's the Alex Honnold to me. It's like and you know, all of those sports, but he's the one I kind of he's so charismatic and so dedicated, and he plays around so much, so he has so much goddamn fun that it's like that's what you should be having out there. And like if you're gonna mimic someone, like have the fun part. Like don't try to like do the same thing. Because you're not gonna have fun if you do anything that you know, is like way above your head. But yeah, so that's the cool thing. But yeah, I mean, the statistics are in Class 5 boating, Class 5 rivers, Class 5 plus. The statistics of death are just astronomically high. But like I said, like these pros, I mean, Dane's just lapping the Stikine, and you know, and that's not even the hardest river in the world from probably his perspective, but it is. I mean, just from my perspective, like I'm not pipe dreaming this, and I probably will never do this, but I could, you know, if I ever wanted to, like my physical body, I don't think I can handle it, but I see an R1 raft go down the Stikine in a way you'd want a heavy floor. You know, you want to duck dive waves. You'd want to strap yourself potentially to the boat. Maybe, I don't know. I actually developed a way where you could strap yourself to the boat with all these 1 foot NRS straps. So then, you know, you could always undo them. But that just enters a realm of like, yeah, it's just too much. And I mean, if you really watch the footage and put yourself in there, it's absolutely terrifying. My goal is just to potentially get into some bigger waves that I feel more comfortable on. I mean, big wave class 4, it's like, dang, that can be monster waves, you know, and still pretty safe results from flipping and, you know, cleanup. But so as I always look at that. But yeah, these people that are at the top of their game also have the skill to be there, so they are less likely to statistically die than someone that's not at the top of their game trying to do all these accomplished lines or runs, blah blah blah. So I definitely note that. But yeah, I got emotional because like Sam Grafton, I want to mention his name again, legend kayaker. He passed. He tipped upside down, narrow, kind of a tributary of the Snoqualmie River over in Washington. You know, he's living in an area where you can just boat year round. So it's a winter's run. I think on the North Fork, called Ernie's, and see, this is where I do a lot of educating on myself. I'm fascinated with coaching and educating. Like, let's say someone's a class 5 kayaker, and I'm not even a kayaker, but I want to learn what they're doing and the runs they're going down, and Google Earthing them and seeing their lines, you know, even kind of memorizing them. So that's kind of my style, and so that run, you have all these small drops, you know, really boulder choked, but small drops, and then kind of, you know, quick turns. But anyway, so there's a root ball at the bottom. He tipped over, couldn't get up before getting flushed into he got stuck in a root ball. So that's it, you know. You got, for the average person, 3 seconds of breath. For kayakers, you have more. You know, hopefully up to a minute. But that's the other thing. Like, if you take this, I want to mention this is kind of a kayaker rafting thing. Is that kayaking is a little dangerous. You get yourself in a hole in a kayak, you're already like cartwheeling, losing breath, trying to just get some air. Like, and let's say you're in a hole that you're not getting swept out of, and then you have to pull your skirt. You know, you might pull your skirt after your breath is done, and then you're getting, you know, 20 seconds of downtime. So you can get 30 easily. 30 seconds, and even on commercial rafting runs, there's certain rivers, you know, and some are not particularly harder than others. You know, in the class of even class 3, I think the Moab Daily, there's a great video of someone getting a full 30 seconds. You hit the bottom of the river. Okay, I'm just going to jump in because this is such a dinner conversation. It's like life jackets. So they're all the same. If you're an adult, everyone wears the same adult life jacket. Well, it's like, what if you're 300 pounds? Like, why would I wear the same life jacket when I'm only 150 pounds? It's because, so you only have 15 pounds of flotation. And the short of it is all our heads are about the same weight. Like a 300-pound guy, his head's only about 15 pounds, and, you know, maybe my head's only, you know, 12 pounds or something. So that difference right there is because that's all life jacket's doing. Our bodies are pretty neutrally buoyant. So whatever flotation, if you put 15 pounds of flotation on, 15 pounds of us is going to float to the top. That's the weight of our head. So, you know, it's like, that's a life jacket in a nutshell. And so, you know, I put that on some threads, but, you know, just verbally, that should kind of blow your world or rock your world. So that's the concept of like, oh, well, what if I have, and then when we go rafting, our clothes should be neutrally buoyant, you know, like even just wearing a fleece and a splash jacket, all that stuff's kind of neutrally buoyant. If you throw it into the river, it's not going to sink real fast. But that's where if you throw a carabiner in the river, boom, it's going to sink real fast. So if you're putting about 10 pounds of metal on you let's say even 5 pounds, you've just reduced, you know, so now you're going to be floating up to here, you know, and put 10 pounds, you're going to be floating up to here. So that's kind of how that's exactly how that works. If you put 15 pounds of metal on you and then put a 15-pound life jacket on you, boom, you're just going to be neutrally buoyant again. So, neutrally buoyant isn't a bad thing in a river. Go check out Ocoee Rapids. So Ocoee's got this kind of the Olympic stretch. I don't know if it's the Olympic stretch right there, but you know, just a big, like 2 big waves that dump rafts, and they'll actually catch swimmers. Not for too long, but you'll body surf. And you're gonna body surf because you're in a big old like floaty life jacket. And so if you're not in a big old floaty life jacket, you'll easily get sucked under and swept under. And so and there's a huge debate on whether you want more buoyancy or less buoyancy, and it's like, oh, that situation where you get sucked under doesn't happen very often. But what I will say is the dynamics really get affected when you're talking about a raft going into a wave. So when I did the Grand Canyon, I had like 150 pounds worth of food, water, gear in my raft. And it wasn't my first rodeo of doing multi-day trips, paddling one, you know, like everybody's like, well, why aren't you paddling harder? It's like, are you serious? Like I have 150 pounds of gear and I'm just paddling with one oar. Like every paddle stroke is like going to the gym, you know, and doing a rep. And so every rapid is a series of like 30 reps. And it's really difficult to see that you're giving it your all when you don't see like this fast motion. But having all that weight, it's incredible. It's like you're, yeah, you can crush through waves so much easier. So it's something I want to experiment on short, long day stretches. I have it on the lock saw. Lock saw, I only put 40 pounds, but I do. I put 40 pounds of weight in the front, and yeah, it's my gold standard. I mean, if you put nothing, you're just, every time you hit a wave, you ain't going through it, you're getting stopped. Like first your momentum's getting stopped. And I really do like to throw out topics, especially in a hypomanic state or whatever. It's just kind of like I really do enjoy bringing up a topic, seeing if you can narrow it down by analytics to see what makes sense. And one is, so the guy's name was White. No, I may be mixing this up with like Georgie White, and the gal who did the Grand Canyon. But the first, still think the last name's White. Could be wrong. Potentially the first person to ever accidentally or purposely go down the Grand Canyon because he was on the run was this gentleman that built a wooden raft and went through all the rapids of the Grand Canyon. Actually, most of Glen to, I forget. But anyway, at least from Lee's Ferry down and got to the exit. And I think he had to put in near Glen. Could be wrong about that. But that was, yeah, maybe, anyway. People didn't believe his story. And I kind of read one of the historical books in the Grand Canyon, and I was okay with believing it from the analytical perspective. He was on the water, like, you know, kind of like the Emerald Mile. They just kind of floated or paddled really hard to get through. Well, his situation was kind of the same. He didn't really get to shore. He was just kind of paddling night and day. He didn't really paddle. He was just kind of surviving and hanging on. But what I'm getting at is a neutrally buoyant wooden raft. Like, wood is about half under, half above, so you got so much weight of it's kind of neutrally buoyant in the river, that if you have a wooden raft and you're going through waves, it's just gonna go through them. And so if you're holding on, you're gonna be like holding onto a submarine, and that's going to be a huge advantage, especially if you've built in a craft that you're not going to flip on. Now, heavy crafts still can flip. Like once you start that motion, even some heavily, like on the Grand Canyon, heavy gear boats flip all the time. But just in general, a lighter boat's going to flip like a pancake a lot faster. So, and I just bring that up because if I was to R1 raft, you know, large wave rivers, it might be this trade-off between weighting the floor, having that crushing, because even kayaks, they're so low volume, and then, you know, still plenty of volume, but and even there you're piercing, but you still can pierce through waves. But then also, the whole boat, just like a person can get sucked under a rapid in huge holes, a kayak can also do the same. And so that is an advantage, you know. Anytime a kayaker gets stuck in a decent hole, they have more advantage of just flipping upside down and seeing if that can pull them out. Most times that's not going to, because some of these holes can be pretty sticky. But that is going to be doing nothing, side surfing, and tipping upside down and trying to get pulled out. If that's your only technique of how to get out of a hole in a kayak, that can be better. It's best to use all your techniques and work towards those exits and flip upside down if you're in that situation and peel out. But yeah. I don't know. I like this format because it's like the zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. You get mental, like my perspective on mental illness, and then kind of just my fascination with the sport of rafting. And it's an interesting fascination because I only go a few times a year now, and yeah. And even me, I'm terrified of like dying in the you know, just pushing those limits. There's plenty of, it's so easy to get in over your head in rafting. And to do it from just I want to do something harder, it's like I don't, like my friends are just like, oh, let's do this creek, like let's do Fish Creek on the Locksaw. And I've already, like, no, that's not my forte. It's like, that's not going to increase my goals to what my goals actually are. But if I go from the perspective that you need safety, and I can and do that where like I'm going to do the lines, that actually puts me in a better position than, you know, trying something, you know, just for the sake of running waterfalls, you know, kind of that aspect. So that'll be interesting if I ever do kind of run some harder runs from, you know, things that I wouldn't want to run, but do it from that perspective that I could provide a platform of safety for someone else and still get skill, gain that skill. But then the stretches that I want to do is just like, no, we should do like the upper Locksaw at like 10,000. You know, it's a classic class 4+ run. You know, class 5. I mean, like you swim like yeah, 40 or, you know, it's like people our age, they can't get out and they die. You know, it's like one of the deaths is that kind of a healthy 40-year-old cataract flip. Because I kind of look at all the death statistics because they're fascinating. I find it fascinating. But yeah, like that's what's gonna happen. So let's not have that happen and team up. But let's go run those stretches. You know, in huge waves, like big holes that like it would be really hard for me to avoid. So that's kind of why I want to do that. And that's very continuous. It's like, that's like, why wouldn't you do that? Well, I have plenty of reasons why I wouldn't, because the standard Locksaw run that I actually do, there's, oh, that's crazy. It's like, well, it's pretty safe. You know, some deaths on the Locksaw for sure, but it's got real easy cleanup, pretty simple swim to shores, and this is for, especially if you're used to that environment. A lot of people are just like, no, once they hit that waterfall out of that boat, they're like, this is not what I wanted, you know. It's like, yeah, the figure it out yourself, that really never is people's cup of tea when it's, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of my style when it comes to rafting. Yeah, so I've just kind of written down, there are times where I can only get 2 hours of sleep. So that is so interesting I mean, I'm just wondering if other people, because I've allowed myself to go to sleep when I want, and then whenever I'm awake, stay awake as long as I need or want. And I'm really glad I'm doing this video tonight, because it is difficult. Like, even if it's just like, night schedules are probably hard for anyone because there is no light, and it's really difficult to craft that motivation. Tonight, though, I don't want to go to sleep at 4 or 6 in the morning when the sun comes up. I'm actually planning on hopefully going to a coffee shop with a friend, because I need some daytime. Like, half the stuff that I actually want to do as a job requires making noise. Right now I'm doing a welding project, and I just have to do it in the daytime. I live in a neighborhood, so I mean, my ideal living situation is if I'm out of earshot of everyone, but like literally that doesn't exist on Earth. Like, to be in a place where you can like run a lawnmower, or something that loud of that caliber, or run an angle grinder, and I guess a shop that's inside, that would do it. But even that, like, if you can hear the reverberation and it's like offensive to a neighbor, then that doesn't work. But no, it's good for me to brainstorm. I mean, because even in this small town of Helena, we have a railroad district. Yeah, there might be places in Helena where you could actually have a shop where you could make noise, 24 hours a day. I mean, if there was Nirvana, that would be it. A place where I could make noise 24 hours a day, because I don't know. Even living with my parents are really solid sleepers, but you just kind of go into a mode where you're not like they just went on a trip for this last month, and it was so nice for me just to kind of really fully be who I am at night, and set up some of my business stuff and make noise, and that was more freeing. So it's just a good mental note for me that if I find something like that, I could do better, and that can regulate my day. Like right now, it's just like there's certain it's difficult, but I do have that. So that's why I always try to find jobs to fall back on. One is the digitizing. I haven't this winter set that up again yet, but I probably should at some point. Yep. Yeah, I think I shared a little bit. So like last night, just using that energy to be able to actually share about aspects of the mental illness that I just don't get to share the stories. If I sat down, try to do it in like a classic YouTube format of making this make sense, it's just not going to happen. That's why I wanted to share, the story of kind of being homeless in Baltimore. I don't know how much got clipped, or if I even started sharing that at the end. But yeah, it's so fascinating. And maybe I'll just kind of jump in where I left off. But I worked for a lady in Seattle after my first episode. Just crazy how after your first episode you get like a job that's not healthy for you. But it worked. You don't pay taxes, you just show up and help someone, caregiving. And then, did that for almost a year and a half. 2 years later, her cousin wants her cousin from Baltimore to move in with her, and she needs. So this lady's 400 pounds, 400, 500. I don't know if that got clipped. hoarding house, type 3, whatever that class 3 hoarding is. So like almost a 4, because you do have like the 3 cats. You're not using the litter box. I had to wear a respirator for the ammonia. She has 1 daughter, but you know, because her disability is so bad, I mean, the daughter's just a little out of the picture, but she'll come visit every once in a while. But a meth addict, so that's tricky. Or just dry. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's a little. I mean, you know, whatever. Maybe, hopefully, it was just once. But if it's meth, it's not just once. Anyway, she was gonna go to fly to Baltimore and help pack up a moving van and drive this cousin. But I knew that wasn't gonna happen because she would back out, so I would be on that list. So I was waiting for that phone call at 5 a.m. But I mean, I don't know if I even told. But yeah, I was already picking litter, which was perfect, but it was a 410s. So then I had 3 other days to like help this lady, and she needed a lot of help. So I was working 7 days a week, you know, and 60 hours a week, and that's just, it's too much with mental illness. It's not too much as long as you know when you need a break, you take a break. But I got wrapped up in a situation where I already hit my limit, and now I got a 5 a.m. wake-up call to fly to Baltimore. So, get driven to the airport, on the plane. I'm just getting manic on the plane. One of the symptoms is my whole back just kind of lights up, kind of like my whole vertebrae is just kind of like, feels like it's heating up. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. And then just getting taken from like one familiar location, and then just like, I don't do well with travel because even a little bit cultures by region, like I drove out to the West Coast to try to run the Golly one year, and I got manic just on the way out just because like the people seemed different. Like, you know, in some of the little towns I stopped in, my car broke down and I was in Lexingburg, Kentucky, and I was just like, this is different feeling. And yeah, it's just like, so you can get that's like the no sleep and knowing that I'm in a hypomanic state's different than like, whoa, I'm experiencing hallucinations now, and I don't like that, and it's a red flag that, you know, it's this red flag that I'm not comfortable with, because it's a red flag enough that it's like, man, I should be moving back to stability, not moving farther away. So yeah, so get dropped in Baltimore, can't find this lady at the airport, I'm getting so tired, you know, after about an hour, finally locate this cousin, and she's got a brain injury. She's got, she had a stroke, and her brain don't work very well, and I mean, like, I need to speak frankly and imaginatively, just to like paint like the scenario that I'm in. So, but yeah, she looks spooky, you know what I mean? Like, she looks to me, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, her brain don't work, and she can't drive at all. Like, she's going from like one lane to the other. And then just within that drive, like, I'm in a alternate effing universe. You know what I mean? Like, who the hell wants to be in that? And there's been, it's a super trigger. Normal people, like, you can run your whole life normally, and you know, like, you don't want your life to be a bad dream like that, ever. So I'm going to take a little tangent. So like 3 years later, you know, between episodes, I'm going into like my 4th episode. I'm rafting, picking litter, but then 3 days rafting on the Wenatchee. So kind of doing that same thing, overextending myself, but doing what I want. I'm actually like guiding rafts down the river and then making my money picking litter. So like I felt really satisfied that I was kind of taking care of myself. But mentally, hell no. It's like I need to make sure I always know I have a disability that like this is the level. It's like this is the level that I'm satisfied with, and you on the other side of that lens should be satisfied with. Like no more, you know what I mean? Because like it's like know thyself. Like you can't push people with disabilities. You know, it's like you give them give me opportunities, but then let me back out. You know, just like, you know, have this open-ended opportunity. So that's what I kind of set up with my friends. But anyway, that whole summer was just loaded with hallucinations and just crazy events. And I was camping, you know, just always road camping, and then, you know, just wake up and there's like this sketchy brown sedan, you know, just nasty looking vehicle ready to fall apart. Probably got mold in it, and they have trying to change their tire, and I was like, oh, I can help you out. And then it was just such bad textures. I mean, they looked so bad that like I mean, speaking imaginatively again, she looked like a witch, and then the guy was maybe slightly younger, but he looked so drugged out that he was hallucinating in my mind that like he was like, let's say this was like a fantasy movie, like he was like a little puppy on a leash, like the witch turned him into a puppy on a leash, and then like that was like so or if you've seen anyway, but yeah, that's exactly what it was like, and it was just so bizarre. It did not help, so I have to bring this up. I was also, because I'm having hallucinations after 2 episodes, 3 years of bipolar, let's say, I'm wanting to kind of learn maybe more about this. So I took a course in shamanism, intuitive development through shamanism, taught by a Lakota Indian shaman, you know, quote-unquote shaman, in Seattle. And we kind of learn a lot of different things. So I was using that perspective to make sense of this moment. We learned the tarot, which shouldn't. I mean, the tarot is interesting. I don't want to. I mean, whatever reaction you have right now when you hear the word tarot, let's just go with that. I don't mean to jerk a reaction out of anyone. But anyway, so I was like, oh, let me do some cards for you. And she's like, no, I don't do cards. But anyway, so like even she was, like I was just matching like with like. It's like if I'm seeing a witch and like this little dog on a leash type of guy. Yeah, so I asked her that. It's like, you want me to read cards for you right now? And she's like, no. And I go to, even changing the tire was awful. Because I just had a little sedan and water got into my jack. She didn't have a jack. So water got into my jack and handle for the, and then it was all the paint it was so rusty, all the paint flaked. And it would literally cut your hands like when you gripped it. So the whole situation was just awful. And it's just like, oh, you just didn't want to be those people. Drugged out or something. I don't know. But, and maybe it was just me. You didn't want to be me hallucinating. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they were just fine. Happy as clams. But, no, there's plenty of times where I need very clean cut. This is new, kind of the facial hair thing. I grew out my beard. I did no shave November, and you know, got about a month worth of beard, and then I kind of got triggered because I looked homeless. And in Baltimore, I just grew out my hair kind of, and it works in Seattle. Everyone's kind of greasy in Seattle and don't really give a crap. So I grew out a beard in Seattle, but I just kind of looked homeless. So when I was in Baltimore, that was part of the story. Like, everybody just thought I was homeless. I was wearing rubber extra tough boots all around. So I'm just wearing homeless garb. And everyone just thought I was homeless. And that did not help when I was having a mental breakdown to actually get any sort of help. I mean, because if you're literally homeless for, let's say, 10 years and with a mental illness, for better or for worse, you've survived 10 years of being homeless and having mental illness, and then so you kind of got your life figured out. But the second, it's those transition points of getting thrown into an environment that you can't handle. Like, that's the absolute worst. Like, you're just, I can't handle this. I have no skill. So that's tricky. So every time I get really hallucinations, like, that's big red flags, and I don't like it. And yeah, I don't want to comment, but yeah, there's just like YouTube videos of people, like, well, now I need to maybe make some context. But yeah, rafting, saw some raft videos, people drinking beer, going down the river, and it just looked like a bad dream. You're like, ooh, I'm just glad my river trips don't look like the friends that I go with don't look like that. You're just like, ugh, just seems like a bad dream. Almost back to Baltimore, but yeah, in Seattle, just like when your life's kind of falling apart, like me and my fiance going into that first episode, we stuck around for the first 2 episodes and then kind of separated. Still hung out into the third. By the time the third one came, the Baltimore one, I had to leave Seattle. My parents made me leave Seattle. I didn't want to. I still needed separation. I wanted to, if I have mental illness, I still need that, like, I gotta do it on my own. But that's where I realized, that's what my choice was. I was like, well, I'm just going to be a burden to someone in a relationship. I'm not going to add economic value to them, because mental illness is so debilitating to me that I just need employment that, probably ain't going to make a lot of money. So, and it's really hard to keep jobs for long periods of time. So just, I don't know. I just had to make that class act decision of being like, your life's going to go on, and mine is too. And, yeah, it's going to go along a whole lot easier. But I knew, like, my parents had this goal of making sure I didn't die from mental illness. And I know this other gal's like, it's like you just don't have it. It's like, that wasn't there on that radar of like, oh yeah, your mental illness is your top priority. Like, that wasn't. Well, my parents, that was their top priority, make sure did not die from mental illness, which, psychosis, multiple episodes, being in the hospital, your chances are you're at higher risk, that's for sure. There's only so much the human body can handle. So that was a big transition, difficult, but I don't even know. I don't know. Yeah, I guess mentally I made it, but even I didn't. The rug was getting swept out underneath me. So after Baltimore, I had to move back home, and then I was stuck almost. I tried to run away multiple times. Like, my parents were so literally, well, right away you need to get a job. So it was a 1 week after, such a horrific mental illness event. I didn't even get to go to a hospital that time, because the doctor's like, well, if you're in their care, then, maybe you don't need to go to the hospital. And it's like, oh, this is crazy. So I tried to escape. My dad had to sleep in front of my bedroom for like the first week before I actually kind of calmed down, being like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to try to hitchhike back to Seattle. It was winter time anyway. Yeah, so that's the hardest part about mental illness, is the bar gets set lower for you, or you have to set the bar lower, and then reassess, like, what do you want to maybe do that's a little higher than the bar that you set? Like, what are your goals? So it's good to have that too. yeah, in Baltimore, that drive was crazy. We were just driving all over. It was like an hour to where the Baltimore airport was to where she lived in the burbs, kind of nice suburbs, apartment complex. But yeah, and then, yep. So I just didn't get. And then she's a hoarder too. What the hell? Like, holy shit. Like, so then you just other people's problems. Like, how much can you take other people's problems? Well, that was my limit. I was like, this is effed. Yep, it was effed. Not as bad as the other lady, but I mean, at least the lady that I work for, I mean, personality-wise, I mean, she'd treat people rude, and I mean, I don't know, like, she was military, so she would, but I learned a lot. It was, but this lady, you just couldn't, her brain was damaged. Like, so then you just have to work with a damaged brain. She told me she was a college professor. Well, that was in the past. She's not a college professor no more. Brain's damaged. And it's frightening to me as a person with mental illness. And so, it just wasn't a good combination. And, but personality-wise, no, she was very, like, I'm not going to get screwed over. You know what I mean? Like, so she was on guard and, just like, yep. But, her house was a little cleaner. It's kind of just more just, yeah. She only had one cat. It wasn't pissing and pooping everywhere. But just a lot of stuff. I mean, just mountains of stuff. And then we just had a 3-day window to pack it all up in a moving truck. She did hire movers to do all of that hard work. So actually, there wasn't much work for me. But there was, because I, had to help her. Her mobility was bad, kind of walking with a cane. And then, she had all these tasks that we needed to do. I mean, just like her cousin that I work for in Seattle. And I lost sleep that first night, 2 hours, and then probably none after that. And then so it was 3 nights before maybe moving, and then I was already just so manic. And even the sleep, maybe I even got an hour or two, but I was, because like, I just did a video where I got 36 hours no sleep, or maybe 2 days, but I'm not in that mania. Like, let's say I'm hypomanic, but I'm not hallucinating. But this is still kind of early in my mental health career, where it's just like my body would just start hallucinating, and then it just gets so bad. And I'd be fascinated with hallucinations. I'm taking a course on shamanism. All this is very interesting. Like, I would rather focus on the hallucinations than anything else. So, like that, I don't have a framework to actually rationalize anything and be like, nope. Like, physically, if you're going to move a moving truck for the next week, like across the country, you have to have sleep underneath your belt, else you're just going to die on the freeway. So at a certain point, I kind of realized this, and I knew this was just an awful, awful thing. Because I realized this the second day, because I asked her, I was just like, well, yeah, great. Once we get the moving truck, I can just go, right? And she's like, no, we have to caravan together and then sleep in the same hotels. And this might have been like the night the movers were moving, because, and I think the movers did 2 days, but it was literally that last night. I mean, they moved all day and all night, and, even then, even the movers got spooked. Like they thought, speaking from, they thought the house was haunted. She's a haunted person. I mean, she's got brain damage, and it's just like, her whole house is fucking nuts. I mean, just hoarded, but it gets to you. I mean, and then they get to do their job and go home, right? But and I might be the cause of their terror because I'm doing, like, I'm cleaning the sink like I'm, like, making a spell, you know what I mean? So, I'm, like, going to the corners, and yeah, But anyway, I mean, that's my only way to rationalize being so low on sleep, hallucinating. You might as well start, doing what your brain wants to do, like really getting into the crypticness of reality, or whatever the reality in your head at the moment is. You know, so. But yeah, she's like, no, we have to caravan across the country, and that didn't seem like it was going to happen. And then the movers got real angry or something, and they're like, towards the end of the night, they're like, well, you got to get her to a hotel room. And I was like, dude, I don't have to do a fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, who are you? Like we're just two individuals, like me and this lady's, like, but you're from the moving company. And there was, I don't want to get into it too much, but I guess it has some over. Alright, very interesting. I pushed my battery too far, and I lost 15 minutes from that last little bit. But it was good, because I think I went on a tangent that I didn't want to share. It was unrelated to the story. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to have to be unrelated. Maybe that's for the best. But these movers, yeah, they were... imaginatively, they were demons to me. I mentioned that I still had kind of Christian overtones that I was dealing with that would come out through my hallucinations. So, it's just like, who are they to tell me what to do? And so that led me to, and I'm already screwed. I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to drive this lady, to a hotel room tonight, to whatever plans are. It's already 2, 3 in the morning. It's like the movers moved all the beds, so we're just in an empty apartment. So I get it. It's like you have a person, and maybe they're looking at it from a person that's like, hey, you're the caregiver for this person. And it's just like, no. Like, I'm not a caregiver. Like, she lives her life on her own. And, so maybe I just even thought of that today. Maybe that's why they were saying, it's like, you need to do this. You need to get her to a hotel. But they were intense. The 15 minutes was talking about, just differences in culture. I mentioned a job when I was litter picking, having an incident, and realizing it's, it was even like when you talk about racism or something like that, the overtone was, it's not, it's definitely the individual, or it's the stereotype of a bully or a gang member. It has nothing to do with culture or racism, but I kind of talked about that, of how I kind of learned from an event there to be like, no, a scary individual is a scary individual, no matter what, culture or race they are, you know what I mean? Like, if someone's, this coworker was just really in my face, threatening to kill me, so that was intense. And then you put like a racial overtone on it, and I just remember sharing that story with my friends, and then being like, no, and then just realizing, no, that's the way you're saying it, David, that is racist. So you have, it's like, it doesn't matter, whether it's like a white gang member or any other culture of gang members. Like, this individual, grew up this way, and they're scary, and they put that scariness on you, and that's not a racist assessment of judgment, you know what I mean? So that's just what it is, because, and you take this person that I was mentioning, their same race, on someone that's not threatening your life, then yeah, it's like the individual first. So it was the mention of being in I was on the East Coast, and there is a lot of different cultures out there that I haven't, you know, been around and having hallucinations and mania, it's like those make me feel like I'm in a different place. Like reality is different. Like, you know, it's kind of like the Einstein thing. It's like reality must be different here because everything, you know, it's a different world or something. But yeah, these guys were really forceful, and kind of the main guys, even the head guy, he was like the most forceful. And so then at a certain point I realized this night ain't happening, and I can't. So yeah, so here's chronology. So then I go to the other room and just lay down, and I'm done. Like, I'm just staring at the ceiling. And then about, you know, however long later, one of the workers comes through, the head worker comes through, and he stands over me and is like, doing Vipassana meditation, are we? And so he said out, am I doing Vipassana meditation? And that's exactly what I was doing. I was doing Vipassana meditation, looking at the different color shapes on the wall and then kind of making them equanimous or whatever from Vipassana meditation retreat that I did. Blah, blah, blah. How the hell did he know I was doing Vipassana meditation? Like, that's like some serious mind reading crap if he's just like looking over me saying I'm doing this, like I'm just looking up the freaking ceiling. So the way to rationalize that was that potentially we were talking about religion because there was kind of a religious differences between, and maybe I was curious about that, so I was talking about that. I probably talk about shamanism a lot, so you know, they probably mentioned what they're into, and I probably told them I was into Vipassana meditation potentially, and asked about stuff they did. I don't recall that 100%, so it makes it just weird, but that threw me right then. My world don't make no sense. So like that's the hard thing about mental illness is you get to this place where like the movie The Matrix. Yes, like if you see that glitch, yes, like. Well, you get that glitch shit all the time when you're hallucinating and manic. You're like, well, that don't make no sense. And I don't think any way I could make sense to rationalize that he can just come right over the top of me, you know, looking all intense and demon-like, you know what I mean? It's like, so I associated him with a demon, like he's not my friend. And he obviously knows what's in my brain, blah, blah, blah. So it gets real. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm like trying to plan my escape. Then the phone rings and the lady answers the phone and it's Rihanna, and that's who I was working for in Seattle. I guess I'm using her first name, not her last. So here we go. So Rihanna is like, "Oh, how's it going?" And then the cousin, she's like, "Who the hell did you give me?" You know, it's just, and then Rihanna's like, "Oh, well, David, he's such a nice person. You know, he's such a great." He's like, he doesn't do anything wrong, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's lazy and like so cousin's just cussing up a storm or, you know, just like ripping into me real hard of like, who the hell did you give me? She doesn't know I'm in the room. She doesn't know I'm just laying on the floor, just in the next room. And that conversation gets over. I'm terrified more. Like, so she's against me. This whole crap's crazy. She's got her cane. She's clicking around the kitchen. Kitchen's kind of large floor, and I keep hearing this clicking. But then I'm thinking, I know it's her cane, but then I think I hear other clicking, and I'm thinking she's turning on the gas stove. She definitely has a gas stove, and I'm thinking she's just clicking the gas stove. So then I'm thinking she's gonna blow me up. All right, so that's an irrational one. Never got blown up. But I'm like, I need to get out of here. So I kind of thought she was in her bedroom by this point. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stand up and just bolt to the door. And the second I stand up, I see her. She like gets startled because she didn't know I was just laying there the entire time. And I see her maybe like 4 paces from the door. I see her run to the door. And I was like, what the hell? How does a woman that gets around with a cane, has all these disabilities, I mentioned, probably got cut, but we were going to the lock shop to get a lock for the storage unit, the moving van, and it had like this grassy slope. We were in the lower part, I don't know. We had to walk across grass, and it was all slopey, and then she like fell over, and I like help her up. And then like moving that night, like she was, you know, she gets to get around with her cane and hold on to things. And then like she fell down and she was all just in a pile trying to like, then she was in a pile and no one was helping her. I didn't even know she was in her room, all fall down in her closet. So then I helped her up again. So I helped her up a couple times. But yeah, not a lady that just like sprints to her room. So then I was like, she don't need no cane. So when I got back to Montana with a psychiatrist, I relayed that story. I still can't understand how she moved so fast, but we deduced that potentially I just saw her move that fast in my mind. Like, whatever I saw is kind of what I interpreted, blah, blah, blah. But it meant that I was done, you know. So I sprint for the door, down the hallway, waiting for the elevator, hit the elevator button, ding, thank God, elevator opens, oh no, it's the workers. Ooh, it might have been, no, the story gets better. I got into the elevator, then go down. So I'm already on the ground floor. Then I open it, because all the workers were just packing it Tetris. I mean, they had to like repack it, because they're like, dude, you didn't buy a big enough truck. We brought a huge truck, but it like wasn't big enough. So then I'm almost out the door, and then they come. I didn't get outside, but they were all in the parking lot, and so I didn't do a very good job of making my escape, because then the lead guy sees me. He's like, where are you going? He's like, we're almost done. We need to get back up there. And I was like, like, I'm gonna go get some food and I'll be right back. And they're like, no, you're coming with us. It's like, we're going up there right now. We're almost done. And I was like, nice. I see a face in the anytime things get intense, you kind of like see faces. So I definitely see a face tonight, and yeah, it's cool because it's got two like the two green eyes, same kind of like largish nose, and yeah, can't do anything. It's just watching, but it's really intense. It's making me shiver. Okay, so we're just gonna move on from there. So it's like, even just like looking at a hallucination and like giving it some character, even though it's still so stagnant, it really, it can come to life. It's not doing anything different, but it actually becomes more vivid. And then when you see it more vivid, then that just gives it more life. So it's like it's animated. So that's how you can just look at something and hallucinate on your own. Just like look at something and be like, oh, I think I see a face. Well, then pretend more that face is a person, and then you'll just hallucinate that, oh yeah, I see the characteristics. And so, it's just really interesting. But yeah, they forced me back in the elevator. Like, I wasn't able to take a little break. I was like, I'm needing a break right now. Was not. So they were like, no, they kind of like, they're like, no, corralled me, got me back in the elevator, and I was like, and then we got to that floor, and then I get out of the elevator, and I was just like, I'm gonna go on my break. So I tried to forcefully get back to the elevator, and then they grabbed me, and they're like, haha, no, you're going. And I was just like, that's fucked, because like, who would put your hands on you? You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. I know it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I'm on a different fucking planet. I'm on the East Coast. I don't know, just things felt different. I'm just saying that from my perspective. And staring at this face right now. Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're fighting for your life. Like, even just staring at this face in this camera, you're just like what's the deal? You know what I mean? It's like this is the hallucinations that you have to work through your entire goddamn life if you have mental illness. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't have to have it, don't. If you don't have to watch scary movies, don't. If you don't have to smoke marijuana, don't. Like, be straight-laced. It's like, there's few people that are straight-laced, but then there's plenty of people that get their lives fucked because, it's like, yeah, my brain is trash, you know what I mean? And I'm just going off on a little little tan because I'm staring at his face, and it's like you have to get, yeah, you have to like get over it. But it's perfect because it really intensifies the story. Because it's like literally you're in your fight for your life. So they're literally corralling me down the hallway because I wasn't able to get back in the elevator. And now I'm just in panic mode. I do not want to go back into that apartment. I do not want to go face, you know, it seems like you're facing a witch. And it's like the exact face I'm staring at right now with this, in the camera, this little hallucination or whatever. But, yeah, it's like it's really difficult to just rationalize that when you can just easily bring back the story and then instantly have a hallucination that like solidifies, yes, that was a threat. Like, and but I have enough rationality, you know, study rationality. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm okay with being okay that there is this rational plane. Yeah, because like literally $10 million, you know, anytime your life starts to become haunted, pick up your cell phone, start turning it on. If you can show someone something supernatural, it's not just, yeah, it's like my dad, he thought, because mental illness runs in our family. My dad, leading up to his episode this last year, which now is very good that he can really take care of mental illness because, yeah, we almost lost him last year. And he recalls working on some of his houses, and one of the houses he works on, really nice place, but he just thought it was haunted. And I just made the joke, it's just like, yeah, so Dad, that house isn't haunted, your brain is haunted. You know, and so, I mean, that's where it's at. If you want the 11 million, you're not going to look outward, you're going to look inward to your freaking brain. Your brain is haunted, and not the house. I mean, it's a joke because that don't make it any easier to know that, yeah, your mind is a difficult piece of hardware. So yeah, as they're pushing me down the hallway, I do what my second episode did a 10-day meditation retreat, and in the hospital, prior to going to the hospital, I was in, so me and my fiance were still together in the apartment. At a certain point, I just go catatonic, and it could have been like a game that I thought I was playing with my fiance, but, anyway, I go catatonic. I'm like naked and catatonic. I get taken to the hospital naked. They put me on the gurney, and they actually do a spinal tap in my back, thinking like something's wrong with my spinal fluid. You'd have to research that. I don't even know what was the reason for that. But that whole process, I'm just awake. I'm just not moving. So I'm like, it's not that I'm good at it. I just know that I can get in that state, and I'm fully aware. It's like I'm just purposely being catatonic because I'm paralyzed. Of like, yeah, reality is too crazy. So down that hallway, I instantly just collapse into a pile and go catatonic. So you're still breathing. You're still, eyes are open. And these two workers, like, you know, imaginatively I made them out to be demons. They, maybe I don't know what they did right off the bat. I mean, they were probably shocked. But I mean, they're probably like, hey, get up, hey, what are you doing? You know, but then they laugh. They're like, ha 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 ha. You know, it's like, so that didn't make my hallucinations any better. Or reassess that they're a normal freaking people. And then they start to like, kind of kick me and nudge me. You know, nothing hard, but I was like, I ain't friendly. You know what I mean? So I tried to make sure I was very much catatonic. I don't know if they touched my eyes and kind of did like this and that, or, you know, like, what, maybe do that, but, I mean, it doesn't affect me. Like, you can touch my eyes all you want. I'm gonna be catatonic. But yeah, the fact that they laughed, kind of nudging with their feet, very not cool. So thankfully they did call 911. I was very thankful. You know, then you have to wait 5, 6, 10 minutes, 50, I don't know. But it seemed like they got there pretty fast. But then, you know, and then 911, or the paramedics, they're doing all the tests, kind of the same. But I'm, you know, I mean, if you could stop your breathing, I'd do it, you know, but you can't stop your breathing. All you can do is breathe but not do anything else. So that's perfect catatonic behavior, and I'm a master at being catatonic. I could do it on the spot if I really wanted to. I mean, besides someone trying to make me laugh, I don't know, that would probably get me. That would be a good test for catatonic. It's like, bring in a comedian. It's like, let's see if we can make them laugh. You know, like, yeah, and they never try to tickle you. I mean, but what would you do? You just laugh and then go back to being catatonic. I mean, like, it won't wake you up. But genuine laughter, like that, I don't know. It's like, well, are you catatonic? And then you'd be like, yep. I mean, it's kind of a choice at that point. But it's very interesting. In mental illness, people go catatonic, and I did. And then so they get me in the gurney, take me to the ER, and then I get to the emergency room, and, you know, tons of rush because I'm breathing, everything's freaking normal. So it's like, why, you know, it's like no one's ever seen someone catatonic. You know, it's like, that's crazy. But it's a big fiasco. So they're like, oh, let's get him a shot. But I'm super opposed to drugs, you know, or any freaking shot. So then once they say, let's get him a shot, you know, I wait till it's about, you know, like they're ready to administer it, and I'm like, and I just kind of like wake up or not be catatonic anymore and be like, and I say, please do not give me that shot. And they're just like, how did you wake up? And I was like, well, I've been awake the whole time. I'm just in a catatonic state. And they're just like, no, you haven't been awake the whole time. I was like, yeah. And then I point to the paramedic. I was like, yeah, you were touching my face. And then he just got offended. Like, it's crazy. It's like, no, you weren't. You weren't this or you weren't that. And it's just like, what? Like that's crazy. And maybe I made a mistake. Maybe it wasn't that guy. You know what I mean? Like, but they did not believe me that I was listening the entire time or like had any sort of, they're like, no, you were knocked out. And it's like, nope, I was just not moving. Like, I was just in a catatonic state. I was just not moving my body purposefully so you would. And then they asked me, like, why did you not move why were you catatonic? I was like, so they would call 911. I felt like I was in a threatened environment. And I don't know if I could even explain that. I knew the hospital was the safest environment. They're not going to hurt you in there. I just definitely wanted to be around those hallucinations that I thought were going to hurt me, or demons, or, you know, I didn't want to drive a car to a hotel or have to do this or that. And so that's some pretty good rationality to be like, you know what, I don't want to die from natural causes of a car wreck, and I don't want to die from supernatural causes of like being in the presence of witches and demons and all the other crap that I think is inside my head. So let's not do that, and let's get to a hospital. So that was the whole reason for going catatonic. Now, did my adventure in Baltimore end right there? No, it was like that's like the teeter-totter, that's the midpoint, because that night, yes, I got to be in the hospital, and yeah, maybe this story is for another day. We'll see how much I want to go. But I got kicked out, like, or, you know, they did the whole, like, hey, let's talk, and then blah, blah, blah. Like, I should have been admitted, like, in, like, the hospitals I've been to in Washington and Helena. If you have mental illness, psychiatric mental illness, then it's like a 10-day stay. You got to get normal. You got to be on meds and get sleep, and, like, there was just no assessment for, like, how much you've been sleeping. Like, it was crazy. But I looked homeless, so I don't even know they thought I came from a normal place. You know, it's like, I have no idea. It's like, well, where did you come from? I was like, well, I was helping a lady move. And, like, maybe it made no sense to them. But they said, well, you got to be on your way. and here's your stuff. And this was the next morning. So, you know, I maybe slept a little bit that night, but that was it. And the morning comes and I'm out. Okay. Well, I don't know where to go. Went to Starbucks, and it's very interesting. It's not a bad thing, stereotype. You know, I'll bring up witches because, like, I mean, it's like, ooh, what are you, a witch? You know, it's like, there's no witches. I mean, you can be definitionally a witch if you want to say I'm a witch in Wicca, and but what I'm using the term, I don't want to offend that that type of kind of religious culture, those that want to participate in Wicca, because I would want to participate in Wicca because I'm fascinated with why I'm hallucinating about witches. But I'm still kind of, at this point, pretty rational, analytical minded, that, I don't know. It's all the same to me. So whatever, like, make-believe in Christianity or make-believe in witches is like the same make-believe in me. So it's like, I don't participate too much in it. I'm kind of want to know more about why things are analytically. But yeah. But then I'm glad I took all these courses in shamanism, because you go into Starbucks, the whole place looks like, you know, it's like, so you, like the Broadway play Wicked, like that maybe cover of like that color of green, you know, and all those, you know, from the childhood, like this color, you know, anything this color and brighter, like even if I drive around the green stoplights at green traffic lights at night, can, you know, against the black backdrop. That's kind of what I'm seeing in the camera. It doesn't have to be green. It's like if I choose a different color, probably less than that. But that's the color that kind of pops. So we're going to Starbucks, and yeah, everyone looks like witches in Starbucks. And, but when I was in Seattle, and I was, after one of the first episodes, I wanted to, it was really difficult. I was a ski instructor. I could hardly talk. You know, it was really difficult. The meds I was on were really sedating, and but everyone looked like elves. Kind of out in Seattle, everyone kind of looked like Lord of the Rings type elves. I just couldn't get out of my mind. I was like, you guys all look like elves. It's crazy. Maybe I look like an elf, but like, I was just like, huh, this is crazy. Everyone looked like elves. That's an hallucination. Kind of an interesting one. I mean, like, I didn't really care that they look like elves. I'm just like, dude, you look like an elf. Oh, man. And, so that's interesting. But then you go into Starbucks and you know, and then I try to test the hallucinations. So even, I've just started drinking coffee for some reasons I might go into later. Probably doesn't seem like a good idea being hypomanic and then on caffeine. But, you know, and I went to Starbucks, you know, it's been a while, and it's just like, yeah, you get it. It's like perfect color. You could imagine, and I don't want to sound culturally obtuse, but Starbucks is known to be a more liberal place. So then, I mean, like, you would imagine that a person that's like an imaginative witch would be more of a free, like, energy person, or, you know, and then so just even seeing a type of person, a stereotype of person in Starbucks, you're like, yeah, classic, and I get why I was making those assessments. Yeah, I want to share, but I just really feel like I want to be PC, or I don't want to be obtuse, I don't want to be racist or phobic of ideology. So, yeah, I feel like that's not even enough to like want it. You know, it's like I don't know, but I still need to share a perspective of where I was at and why I need to use the imaginative storybook, because, you know, even when I first started writing about mental illness and kind of my story, was like one movie that really impacted me very deeply was The Wizard of Oz. And, you know, just like any kid, I could hardly watch the scary scenes and the flying monkeys, and anytime The Witch came out. I mean, such a perfect movie where like the witch is such a small, you know, it's just like, you know, you have all this movie, but then you know at some point the witch is going to be there, and you're going to have to resolve that. But that's why it's just so, even as an adult, it's so important that I just really love backstories. Like that's why the play Wicked is such an amazing story, because it gives you more perspective on a fairy tale. And I mean, if that doesn't just blow your mind right now, it's like I'm really analytical, but I fully understand that we all very much enjoy fiction. Like fiction is king when it comes to what our minds just love. We love fictional stories, and I mean, all religion is to me, like if like people from the past or aliens came down and they're just like, oh, I mean, all it is like, you know, just people just living sci-fi. You know, it's like you're just living in a fiction. I don't want to downplay it because I'm still very interested in what people believe, because it's such a driving force, and I probably don't believe things that are on the norm. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Just, I mean, if everyone believes it, it probably doesn't sound that exciting. Just, that's science. I don't know. That's why science should be boring. Like, science really should be boring. Yeah, we can do, like, tests and be like, ooh, this is cool. But at the, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's everything. But I just don't know how to relate psychosis to reality. People don't want any sort of connection, and I'm not even trying to make connections. Yeah, I have no intent, even from like the schizophrenic perspective, I don't, like my one connection is that the schizophrenic, bipolar, the manic brain is just a brain that's 300 years into the future, which is not that far. You know what I mean? So like, let's say 1 in 20 have this type of working brain currently, and then let's say 1 in 4 have this type of brain 300 years from now from evolutionary, you know, it's just like, that's kind of how I feel psychotic mental illness. But I mean, the psychosis is such a 1% of 1% portion of my life. It would have to be induced at times if I just wasn't in a low sleep state. But the observations and the things that I take from those is different. So, but maybe that's just drug culture. Because I've always been such a great, I guess this is a tangent. One's really hard to find on YouTube, but there's like this British dinner, kind of well-to-do white wigs, and someone's got like a joint or like a pipe, and they're gonna smoke this joint, and it's like the first time they've ever gotten high. But it does such a amazing job of showing these actors, these white wigs, get high in this kind of colonial British dinner environment, that I can get high just watching it, you know. So I take drugs as training wheels. That's the take home. It's like, if you're taking something that alters you, if you're taking something that makes you happier or more energetic or more slowed down, it's like pay attention, because it can be like training wheels. Like if you want to be high, well, just act high, like you know, like dry, throaty, yeah, and then like think about funny stuff, dude. Yeah. And then like, so I'd walk around downtown at night and I'd just pretend like I'm high, and that was a different training wheel, because sometimes when you walk around you think like people are looking at you, and then you just get into just like this standard, like I hate people, or like, I don't know, you just get into the standard agitated state. But if you were high, you're going to walk by people and you're going to be like pretty happy or something, or like kind of aloof. And then so, well, why don't you just pretend that you're high and walk by people? You know what I mean? So that's a training wheel that I do, because I'm just a little bit, I don't like people, I like to be a loner. But I also don't, I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, so that's training wheels. So I bring that back to, can psychosis, can drug events, can they be training wheels from other things? Well, one, I've always paid attention to the psychosis if I have, so if I ever have them again, I know that's a red flag. That's the first kind of training wheel to be like, do I need more sleep? Am I on a river trip? But I don't schedule any more river trips. It'll be interesting. Hopefully I'll see when my next multi-day river trip is. I think it would have to be by myself. I've already said that I can't do one with other people. That friend group, they've done a few, and I'm just like, just don't invite me on those, just invite me on the day trips, because those are hard enough to actually wake up to. I mean, that's a hard reality for people. One of the things that I imagine people on the other end of that lens saying is like, well, why don't you just take meds? I mean, there's meds that potentially can level you out and maybe get you some sleep. So, and sure, but I'm still, I'm 39, I'm young, and I feel like, and even if this is like my second video, I really like this format. I mean, I see it not making sense to most everyone currently, but once it's on YouTube, it's just out there, and I could see myself doing 200 hours of just talking, and it's like if my grandma just sat in front of a camera for 200 hours, I would probably watch it. I would just be kind of interested. And I still have that filter of like, I'm pretty level-headed where, I'm not gonna, obviously YouTube's got guidelines, so there you go. We're just talking about stuff that is dinner conversation. And from dinner conversation, you can talk about the universe, big as possible, and your mind. So I got kicked out of the hospital, into Starbucks, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? I felt I was just going to loiter. So I ended up loitering at Starbucks for most of the day, Safeway a little bit, and had my dad's, oh yeah, I had my dad's credit card, kind of just for those emergencies, because I was living out in Seattle, so he's like, well, I was very particular. I was like, I just want to do things on my own. I had my debit card and wanted to make sure, pick litter, and I was really satisfied with making sure my life worked, and and it just barely works. And so that's hard with mental illness too, when bills are just barely working. So I did have that, and so that was a big creature comfort, because I just know one thing that I still use even today is if I'm ever in those states, if I can have really satisfying food or like good food, that helps. I did not use that during that trip, because I went to say all food just smelled like it was poisoned. And damn, I think it was that, ow. Okay, let's just assume it's the next day. What the hell happened that day? Starbucks? Ooh. I think I went back into the apartment. At some point. Yeah, so I went back into the apartment. It's like the story that doesn't want to be told. My 19-minute timer didn't go off. I already told 20 minutes worth of the story, so I have to kind of go back. But at least I got the chronology somewhat okay. Is that my backpack was in the apartment, same with my driver's license. So I kind of needed both. I needed my backpacks that actually had a sleeping bag. If I was going to be homeless or sleeping on the streets, I needed that. You know, the ER let me go. Like I said, I didn't get a 10-day stay like a traditional BHU, even though my mental health was not good. I guess HIPAA laws, they don't call your parents. They don't call any. I mean, I have no idea. But I mean, if they would have just called my parents, like that would have been a safe haven for me. They'd be like, yeah, that's. I have no idea. I mean, I get how you get someone that's. I looked homeless. They probably just thought I was homeless, and I get it. Like someone who has been homeless for 10 years has. I mean, they literally have experience that someone who is in crisis and homeless for the very first time absolutely does not have. So I was in this weird state of mental illness, crisis, and homeless for the first time, and then just not knowing and not trusting anything. So, and then, I mean, the place you trust is kicking you out. So you're like, what do you do? Yeah. So I think the first thing I did was kind of get... I don't know, this makes no sense. So my backpack was either inside, right next to the porch, like, so she was on the second floor. She had 2 glass doors open out to a porch. My backpack was either on the porch or it was inside, and I needed to get my backpack. And either the first or second thing I did was identify that, so you can't get into the apartment. And I wasn't going to go to the front desk. I was too manic to even know how to do that. And my manic mind already thinks that she's still in there and she's dead. So that's my scenario that I'm making up in my head. Her second story balcony I can climb to. I was like, hell yeah, that's easy. I can climb there. So at some point, I start to climb up her second story balcony, climb up the pole, hop on. Wind blew, you know, real hard, like right at the same moment that I'm like climbing up, and it kind of set the tone. It's very interesting, like when nature, at the same moment that you're doing something, makes it more intense. That really heightens the psychosis. Get on our porch, and I think it's locked. That makes the most sense because you lock it from the inside, you get to the outside, you can't get in, and I see my backpack. So that part did happen, I just don't... but that makes sense because I can't get in that way, and I probably down climb, but then I have to decide how to get in. And I kind of walk around the building once, I do remember that. Yeah, I was just thinking I had this really cool, like, I brought a backpack and then like a really cool like bag, like woven bag that you could carry stuff in. But I remember ditching that in the bushes at whatever point. But anyway, but I have to get in and I have to break in or kind of sneak in. I don't know. So I go to the back parking lot and just wait to see someone. But just the fact of like climbing up was one thing, but now I have to kind of go in from the inside. I don't even like the hallways, the elevators, the stairs. I hate it all. It's just, it sounds terrifying. Why would you go back to the place that just terrified you the worst in your life? Like, why go back there? Well, I need to get my backpack. And I need to, you know, be homeless for a while, I guess. So I wait, and there was a younger gal opens the door and is ready to go to her apartment, right? And then so I, you know, just follow her in. And then she goes to the elevator, and then I wait, and then we both get in the elevator. And then I say something to freak her out. All I say was, she pushes floor number 3, and I say, can you help me? I'm colorblind and bipolar and don't know what floor I'm on. I think I'm on number 2. And, yeah, she, the elevator, I mean, there's probably silence. Elevator opens at 3, the button she pushed, and she just runs to her apartment, all the way down the hall and around the corner. I don't know what to do. I'm not going back down the elevator, so I get off the elevator and everything still seems crazy. But I just walk down the hall and around the corner to where she was going into her apartment, and then I just sit down defeated. So holy shit, that's got to scare the shit out of her, and it did, because she actually even had a living with a partner, so it was a gal and a guy, and 2 minutes later, they open up the door. I don't even know if I don't think I knocked. I have no idea. But anyway, I think what happened was she went in, she's like, dude, there's this crazy, person that just told me, anyway. And so they both open the door, see me sitting there, get terrified, and then just sprint down the hallway. So they're just gone. They just ran away. And that's probably what you should do. So then I realized, well, someone's probably coming in a little bit. So, and I still didn't know how to get to the 2nd floor. I was on the 3rd floor. It was just too scary. Didn't want to use the elevator. Don't know where the stairs are. So what I decided to do is just walk over to the corner. Her apartment was in the corner. It was just like maybe 1 floor down. And I knock on that corner apartment. And a young kid, probably 14, 15, opens up. And I say, I'm helping a lady move. She lives in the corner apartment, but I think it's 1 floor down. I say, I don't like using the elevator. Can you show me how to get there? And then he's like, sure. He's like, see right there? Those are the stairs. And I was like, can you... Yeah, this is crazy, because obviously you don't want your kid to do this, but thankfully, I was like, can you show me how to get there? And he's like, sure. So yeah, so he shows me how to go down the stairs, and then I see the apartment, and I say, yep, that one's it, thank you. And I think I said it less creepy the first time when it got deleted, but yeah, I mean, what I was thinking at that moment was like, so I'm the youngest of 5, there's 5 brothers, 5 boys, youngest of 5. My mom had a 6th, 5 years younger than me. He died at birth. His name was William. But, when I opened up that door and kind of saw that kid, just right away, I was just like, oh, that's, I just associated, like, that's William. You're always kind of like, how old would he be and stuff like that. But, I don't know. But it's just, definitely not an analytical assessment, but that is what I was thinking at that moment. And I appreciated, having, that helping. In the Christian world, you'd call that an angel. But obviously, the way I told the story is just like, never have your kids open the door to anyone. That's crazy that a kid would, Anyway, so thank goodness there's helping people in the world. I really appreciated that. Yeah, definitely the guy and the gal running away, that was the correct response probably for that situation. Because it potentially could have got police. It could have got me out of a mental illness crisis faster. It's like, hey, something's out of the ordinary, just call the police. And they are the stewards for dealing with crisis. And, if you're not committing a crime, then it should be crisis intervention, time, and get back to the hospital. But anyway, that's where the story continues. So I go into the apartment, and I'm not going into her room. I guess no one's I can't hear anything or see anything. I go in, you know, even her bathroom is just creepy. Even the movers just thought everything was just haunted. Even though I'm very analytical minded, and I'm probably the one that, you know, made the associations, you know, come to life. You know, it's like you have these minds that are all making stuff up at the same time. You know, I don't think I'm winning any $11 million by sharing this story and proving anything. You know what I mean? My mind's haunted, not that house. But it's just interesting. Yeah, if you're all watching the same scary movie, it's all scary as hell. But my mind said that she died. Just don't want to mess up. Okay. Last time I missed the 19-minute mark, and I don't want to tell the story like 3 times. So I'm not going into her room, but then I see her cat. It's like, well, so that made it certain that she didn't take her cat, so she's still in the room, and she's dead or something. But she wasn't. She was in a hotel. She just didn't take her cat that night. So I guess her cat was just fine. I got my backpack, but I made the assessment that that cat needed to be freed because she's dead. You know, so like someone's got to take care of the cat, or the cat's got to be freed. So, and that's where I was saying it's not, you know, the statute that was over 10 years ago. But if there's still the statute of limitations haven't run out, then, I mean, because at the end, when the last time I saw the cousin, you know, part of the story, she was yelling, she's like, "You killed my cat." And that's not true. I just let it out. Like, if no one found it, then yeah, then I was potentially the cause of cat death. No one know. She wasn't going looking for it. Put it that way, and she just made the assumption, and she never looked for it. So I don't know. Maybe, hopefully, somebody came across it, and the pound came across it. But no, and I understand the severity of. You know, I even looked up. It's like, yeah, if you kill an animal intentionally, you can get 7 years in prison. You know, I mean, depending. You know what I mean? Kill a neighbor's dog, you can get up to 7 years. This wasn't intentional. This was part of psychosis. But you know, I already told this about 20 minutes ago because I just lost the footage. But you know, I want to be responsible for the things that I do, and I guess I've had a couple of these, you know, the kind of the get out of free jail cards. You know, it's like there was no punishment for that. She didn't press charges or anything. I never even saw her, but she didn't get the opportunity to, or whatever. But even with mental illness, you know, I'm still on the perspective that, yeah, I'm fine with getting, yeah, having the same punishment, not being reduced because it was done with mental illness. I mean, that's just my personal. But I don't know. I mean, the more I say it, it's like, well, then. But it makes no sense, because you're going to do nonsensical things on mental illness, and it's like almost impossible to have that storyline be any different. Like, even telling the story, there's no different result of this story. This is my 3rd episode. It was the worst. Even after the first 2, it's like there's no quick education. You know, it wasn't part of any. Yeah, it's just. But I think we're getting closer to like, hey, you have your first psychosis? Yeah, all this other crap can happen unless, you know, we really make sure that you're well cared for, you know? I mean, the hospital's kicking me out, and then I'm going on this, you know, adventure. And it's just roll of the dice. Hopefully nothing bad happens, you know, to me or to other people or to animals, or, you know, it's, I don't know what you do. But I decided the cat had to get freed, so I grabbed the cage. I spent actually about 15 minutes just kind of staring the cat, kind of cornered it in the laundry room, just staring at it. Just kind of having a, you know, spiritual experience, or what I thought, you know. Then got it in the cage. It was not easy. It took very quick, and it scratched me for sure, but I was very quick about it and got it in. And then on the way out the door, I figured, well, if she's dead in their bedroom, and her bedroom door is closed, and I'm not opening that, I'm absolutely terrified even just to be in there. But I want her to get found if she's dead. I want her body not just smelling up the whole apartment. So on the way out, I pull a fire alarm, because I figure they're going to search all the rooms if I pull the fire alarm. It's probably not even true, but that was what's going through my head. So, you know, it's like total Ocean's 11, get the cat in the cage, walk out, pull the fire alarm, walk out with everyone, and then go behind a bush, open the cage, let the cat free. But I don't know. You know, I mean, that's just my perspective when my hallucinations are showing, you know, something being encaged or trapped. You know, it's like setting it free. So did I kill a cat? No. Set it free. Did it die in a couple days? I have no idea. So, but anyway. But from a rational perspective, is that cat negatively influenced by, you know, it's just like, I mean, the first time when I went in there, it's just like I already had that hallucination in my mind. Like, there's the movie, like The Witches, where you got 3 witches and they turn little kids into like a mouse. Like, I was so heavily affected by that movie that, you know, it kind of came to life at the age of 26 or whatever, 27, 25. I was like 23, I don't know. I was like 24 during this time. Yeah, just a young person with mental illness. Now I got pee in my pants because I don't know if that got cut, but I went back in that. Yeah, I mean, to get enough courage to actually say, nope, I'm going in there. I said, nope, I'm going to go to the back lot, wait for someone, and I'm just going to go face my fears. I'm going to go into that apartment. Because I thought I could just go in the porch and like get it, but I had to go through all that to get there. And so to do that, I just peed my pants right into... I was wearing those extra tough rubber boots, so it's all in the shoes now. So Safeway is literally just kind of like across busy streets and a kind of kitty corner to this apartment complex. So I go there. They've probably seen, well, I don't know if they've seen enough of me at this point. I think it's the next day they do. But I go into their restroom and try to wash my boots out in the sink and try to wash things, you know, as best I can. It's, you know, I look homeless. It's, you know, it's evening time's approaching. I don't know what to do. So I go back to the ER and I ask, you know, I say, hey, I'm having an episode. I need to be admitted. And, you know, how amazing is that to be in crisis, you know, go catatonic, even the whole story up to this point. Second day, go back into the hospital and saying, hey, I need to be in here. I need care. I need help. But the front desk is like, nah, I don't think so. They were just turning me away. I think it's because I had a big old, you know, not super big beard, but just kind of greasy enough that I just maybe looked homeless. The whole part, the clothes that I was wearing, because I was just ready to be outside. Yeah, so then I was so distraught. I saw, you know, somebody kind of walk by, maybe look like something more professional doctor. I was just like, hey, 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 just like flagging them down. It's like, hey, they're not letting me in. I need to be in here. Got mental illness, you know, kind of went through it. And then they took a pause and they're like, okay. So I got a room. And dang, I got a different room. That room was scary. It was, well, no, they just had like, it was like totally empty. They had like one gurney, and it was on metal wheels, and it was just kind of centered in the middle of the room. And it was just like, damn, it's like, you know, having your psych room look like the movies, it's just like, it's creepy. It's like, you're like on this caged dolly that looks cryptic, that just looks scary. It's gonna creak, I don't know. But I think I actually got some decent sleep, just a little bit that evening. So I really appreciated it. But I guess now it's going to be a long story short, because that next day I do whatever, loiter at Safeway, I have no idea. I could even be messing up the days, and that's the one that I went into the apartment, you know, finally. Because I was just like, well, maybe I need to go get my stuff. But I think I already peed my pants when I went to the hospital the second time. I know I cleaned up at Safeway. You know, it's just like, I have no idea, but I'm sure my clothes kind of smelled. But I'm sure they just put them in a pile anyway and then gave them to me again. But I mean, the only important part is that third, I mean, we're talking 3 nights, because that third night, they were like, they told me not to come back. Even that second day at the hospital, they were like, well, maybe that's when they gave me like a bus token. I don't think it was, but I just think they wanted me, they say, don't come, don't do another night here, you know. It's like, figure it out yourself. And they gave me some medicine, but I obviously wasn't going to take that. Went the full day, but I'm still screwed. I don't have anywhere to sleep. I was thinking about sleeping outside because they told me not to, you know, come back. But I'm just glad, because I couldn't do that. It's too cold. And so I just go into the ER and sit down in the emergency room lobby. And I know they're not going to admit me, but I'm just going to sit there. And, yeah. So I sit there till 6 in the morning, maybe 5. And then somebody tells me to leave. And they give me a bus token. And they say you should, you know, you should leave the neighborhood. That was the idea. And, I mean, this is not a fairy tale. I mean, this is crazy, and this is what happens. And there's no assessment. There's no, like, questions and getting to a solution. It's just be on your way. And, yeah. So then I'm kicked out of the hospital. I mean, then I guess the next long story short, because I don't have the what the hell I did. I know I went to Safeway again, and by the time I went to Safeway and kind of ate at their, you know, front cafeteria, I do recall it was either that morning or the morning before I went to Safeway, and everything was hallucinating. Everyone looked like kind of bubbly people, or like they looked like cartoons, and these two ladies were laughing, and they just looked weird like cartoons, and it looked funny, and it looked like yeah, it must have looked like I was on like I was on acid or mushrooms or something, because everything just looked like a circus. And then I was like in my mind I was like, oh, when I get back to Montana, I'm gonna tell my parents, and then we can fly to this Safeway, because this Safeway is hilarious looking. Like, so that's how my mind couldn't comprehend that it's just in my head, but like literally the Safeway has got really weird, funny looking people. Yeah, that was a very weird hallucination. I've not had a similar strength of hallucination like that. I mean, if somebody made a cartoon of what a hallucination is, like, that's it. So, that's why I'd be curious to talk to, I don't want to do any drugs, but I'd be curious to talk to drug users that have used LSD. I don't think mushrooms could get you that, but probably LSD. I'd want to talk to people on LSD from the hallucination perspective, and then meth from the non-sleeping perspective, and just kind of that crazy drive where you just need to clean everything. Or those are the two scenarios that kind of I relate to, I think. Just being a natural person. But yeah, I'm screwed. The hospital's not going to let me back. So then it really was kind of like it was like survival mode and total like Ocean's 11. Like how do you, because I devised a plan. I was done. It was like, I broke my cell phone in two because I couldn't trust, I couldn't trust, you know, like when I was on the floor listening to Rihanna talk to that cousin, and it was just a terrible conversation. I thought somebody was messing with the phones. I thought phones could not be trusted from that point on. And so I figured my phone, because with hallucinations, when you hear someone, they just sound a little bit different. It's like, I don't know, it'd be like if you called your grandma and then she kind of sounded old and stuff, but then like she was pretending. Like that's where your mind goes. And I already assumed that the cousin was pretending to be this person. Yeah. So then you just can't trust anything. So obviously you're not going to trust a phone. But I did. Yeah, and I think it was that morning I was walking, I got kicked out, and I was like, dang, I need to call someone. So I think someone was walking outside the Safeway, and I go over, and I was like, hey, can I use your cell phone? This is hilarious, because I was like, hey, can I use your cell phone? I was going to call my parents. You know, finally developed the courage to, like, get rescue, you know. And he's like, he's like, no, but here's $1. And I was like, $1 is not what I want right now. I just thought that was hilarious. I was like, $1 is like the last thing I want right now. I need like serious rescue. So that was funny. I would smell outside the buildings really strong, like the gas. You know, just gas buildings, you know, gas heat, but just even the slightest smell would be a super huge hallucination. I figured the whole block was going to blow up, so that was interesting. But I devised a plan to go back into the hospital and use their payphones, but I'm not going to go into the ER. I rationalized that hospitals are big enough places where you can go into the different wings, and so I get the courage to go into one of the wings, and it's not too late in the day, it's probably early morning still, and this is interesting because I'm telling the story of kind of like the final like rescue part, and the lights are getting brighter, I really feel it, you know, so it's so interesting. It's perfect. It really happens with mental illness and bipolar mania, is like your emotions will be attached to the lighting in the room, and the lighting will seem brighter if you're talking about something exciting. And so I go up to the front desk, and my social skills are awful when I'm super manic, and I feel like I'm like going to get kicked out also, so I have to do this super clean, and where are the payphones? And they're like, oh, they're down the hall, and then make a left and a right. And I'm like, holy shit, like that's way too many directions. So I didn't think I could handle that, but I did. Got to the payphones. It was awesome, so I was like, Carrot Top, you rule. I dialed 1-800-COLLECT. I was like, C-O-L-L, however you spell collect, E-C-T, collect. Yeah, 1-800-COLLECT, my folks. Dad gets on the line, and they already know I've had 2 episodes before, and my dad knew the challenge of driving a movie truck across the country. So he's just like, well, if you're really gonna help this person, like maybe I should come out. That was in his mind, but he never mentioned it because he also wanted me to like, yeah, do things on your own. You want to do this on your own? Go for it. You know what I mean? But who knew mental illness could hit so hard, so fast, so ugly. Got my dad on the phone like, yep, I'm in a pinch. I can't trust anything. I can barely trust that you are who you are right now. And, you know, like, how terrifying is that? Like that I get. Like, when you're, you know, because I get it from, like, that's my mom and dad, and, you know, I'm their son. And there is that connection. And I was like, I don't know if I hang up if I'll ever trust to call you again either. So, like, what should we do? And my mom's like, well, let me talk to you. My dad's going to get on the phone. Interesting enough, this is the facts. He got on the phone, called the NAMI office. I'm part of that NAMI group. I'm a group leader. And then so person at the NAMI office said, well, don't call the cops, you know, and involve them because you just never know. I don't know. So, like, that was the gist of that. And there might be more to that story, but that's interesting because that's what I want people to do. I want the cops to be that crisis intervention. That's like like you see something on the streets of like you're like, no, that person needs help. You know, it's like there's a different, and hopefully we can judge between someone who's just been homeless for a while and that's kind of what they're doing compared to like, nope, that's out of place. This person like really needs some intervention and help. So my dad gets books a flight to Baltimore. I forget how the flights lined up, but I mean they lined up where he was going to get into Baltimore at 10 and about 11:30 he would be have a rental car at my location, which is crazy. I'm an hour out from the airport. Don't even know what I'm in some suburb. I just kind of forget which one it was. And we agreed I would just be in the Safeway parking lot. I would be in the Safeway, somewhere around there. He booked the ticket, and he's like, yep, I'm driving to the airport. And then we hung up the phone. And he's got to fly from Helena to Salt Lake to Baltimore. And I have all day. That was intense because I go back to the Safeway, get some food, sit at the cafeteria. But that time I was just walking through the aisles of Safeway, maybe getting some food. But then they asked me to leave the Safeway. And I was like, are you kidding? They were like, you're loitering, you cannot be in the Safeway. It's like, we don't want to see you on the premises of Safeway. And I was like, you got to be shitting me. Like, that's, like, literally the place we agreed to meet as the safe haven, and I just couldn't articulate that. You know, I was like, I didn't know what to do. You know, I was like, shit. So, I don't know where I went from there. Because you go into any style, even that Starbucks seemed like, you know, very interesting. Like witches and stuff. I mean, from a good perspective, I'm okay with that. It's just kind of where my mind goes. But I guess somewhere I hung on. I never got to go back in Safeway, but I found a way to loiter around outside enough where I was able to sit on the benches outside Safeway right around that 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock hour, and I was just waiting. And it really reminded me of when I was litter picking. I was starting to get back into reading a little bit, like fiction, and I read The Hatchet, and I was just such a cool book. The kid, anyway, I'm not going to give anything away. It's so awesome. So, just a kid's survival story. That's it. You know, no spoilers. Super short. Best book. Yeah. But yeah, there's just like, I guess, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a point in there where, you know, I don't know, I'll just say this. So I see my dad drive up, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool. And then I just like waved to him, and then, you know, I'm super manic, like high as a kite on I'm just hallucinating. But he comes over, and I got some food, and I was just like, hey, want to eat some food? You know, it's just like whatever. It's like kind of from the Hatchet. So, but that's the reference if you ever read that book. I just don't. I really don't like to give any spoilers on books. But yeah. And I mean, our adventure didn't end there. I mean, he was like, yeah. I mean, he's beyond excited to rescue me and find me. We drive to a hotel. Like, I'm so hallucinating that the hotel looks haunted, like all get out. Like, all the pictures on the wall just look like terror. Like, I can't even look at them. And then I think my dad, because I asked my dad, I was like, did that hotel seem scary? And because I didn't know. I don't even want to ask that question. I've asked other questions that, yes, your mental illness rubs off. It's scary. Like, what you're experiencing, sometimes I experience. I feel too. So that aspect, it's like, that rubs off. If you're around someone that's depressed, you're going to feel depressed. But yeah, the whole rubbing off psychosis, I do not like. It makes... Yeah, like if you rub off your psychosis on other people that you're around, like how do you trust that, you know, you can find something solid or stable? So that part's really difficult. But yeah, that hotel was just real scary. But my dad helped me. Like, I just couldn't look at anything. I was just like, this is so terrifying, Dad. And I was at least coherent enough to tell him like how I'm terrified and what we can do to keep me from just losing it. Because my second episode, I couldn't be in a bathroom by myself. It just felt like a portal to, like, your soul's going to get sucked into a different dimension, especially, like, baths and showers and stuff. That second episode that I had after the meditation retreat in my, me and my fiance in the apartment, so there was like a whole day there of just hallucination, almost 2 days, before I went catatonic, went to the hospital. But one of those times I was just in the bathroom showering, and then I just decided to just turn the shower off and then just lay down and put my head right underneath the faucet, like the one for the bath, and just kind of look straight into the faucet, and it's just like, you know, just how dark, just the shading. So that's kind of what it's like, the Ansel Adams, you know how he does like land art and rock art, and he'll get such shading where it just looks total black. So that was just so interesting to me, just putting my head right in this kind of portal of blackness, just in between the drain and the faucet above. You know, even from the analytical scientific perspective, that middle ground is just, yeah, it's I guess it's just very textured of kind of what you're doing for and why. And then, yeah, that was just haunting. Like, that experience in the shower, like, I'd go through waves of just terror. Like, you're just putting your body into, like, a position of terror. Like, you know, like, why would you put your face right in front of, like, drains? I don't know. It was that symbol of, like, if something scares you, well, just go there. Like, go to the scariest thing that you can go to. Why not? Like, and that was something that I did in that second episode that was very valuable. Is like, go to the thing that's just going to haunt your dreams, and go there and sit and let the fear go through you, let it paralyze you, and get out the other side. And I mean, that was honestly one of the best things I could have ever done. I don't know how you tell someone to do that in like a medical sense. But if you have mental illness and you have that capacity to be terrified from hallucinations, then it seems like a reasonable thing to do. Like I wouldn't just watch scary movies, but like when you are scared, it's like to somehow sit with that and then even play with it and get more scared. I mean, but maybe have a backup plan, you know, because I don't know. But yeah, while I was showering, my dad was rescued me. We got the hotel room, and I just had to. I was like, I just couldn't look anywhere. My dad just made sure I really showered down because I had like just maybe piss around my feet for 2 days, and it couldn't have been good. Probably smelled real bad, and I don't know if he washed my clothes in the hotel washing machine, but he threw away a bunch of clothes that I didn't need. I think he brought me clothes, and then so I think he just threw all the other stuff away. So his big, maybe, because he said he was experiencing psychosis also when I was experiencing psychosis, and one of the things that he potentially, from that point on, he wanted to eliminate Seattle from, you know, any signs of Seattle from me, and then so he threw away all my stuff there, and once I got back to Helena, he threw away a bunch of stuff that was any resemblance to Seattle, and then once we went to Seattle, he went all through my room, and then he made sure everything got thrown away, and I was still in kind of a mental health state where I'm just allowing it, you know, it's like I'm not going to fight back, but I didn't like it. That definitely wasn't, like down the road I did not like my stuff getting thrown away. You know, I went to the bookstore and got books on, like, this one, it was the couple on Wicca and witches. I was just so fascinated. And one was, I just remember the opening page, it's like, if you read this, you're a witch for life. And it's just like, alright, let's do this shit. So... See, that's where it's just like society lives in a sci-fi, in a pretend world, because I don't know. Society lives in a society where they think prayer works, you know, and I mean, that's the $11 million question: does prayer work? You know, it's like you can prove anything out of, yeah. And then there's the workings just within our human psyche. You know, just the fact that I can rub off psychosis. Well, that's nutty. I mean, that's very peculiar or very interesting. But yeah. Just from, that's why I like to talk through this lens, because what you think is psychosis is, or what one person thinks is normal is what I might think is your psychosis, you know, and what my psychosis might be, yeah, what definitely everyone thinks is psychosis. I have no idea, but and then I had to get my ID. How the hell was I going to get on a plane? And then she had it. So, like, she had my ID. My dad was able to call Rihanna, because my dad had Rihanna's number because I was working for her, and, you know, we wanted to keep in touch, I think. So she had that, or I passed it on to my dad. And so the cousin had the ID, and we were going to go to where she was. So she was about an hour out in a hotel. And that was like a movie scene, man. Like, you're just... I remember driving, so I'm high as a kite, or like, you know, just really bipolar, hallucinating. My dad's driving, gotta go get the ID, driving down the freeways, East Coast is really busy. I remember looking out, seeing a limousine with flags, and then kind of this whole procession, and I was like, oh, there's the president. I don't even know if I asked my dad if, hey, did you ever see like a procession? I think that's just totally made up. I probably just saw some guy with a truck with flags and then just made up the rest. But it was very interesting. I did feel, you know how the lights turn on. You know, I totally felt saved that day. But we still had one more thing to do. So we had to get that ID. We had to go back in the lair of the witch. You know, we got to go confront that cousin. And that was cryptic. I mean, just like, I don't know if it got cut out, but I remember, like in Seattle, that episode where I woke up camping, car camping, that crazy brown sedan, just totally dilapidated. The gal totally looked like a witch, and then kind of a younger guy, totally drugged out. And my interpretation was that he was a dog on a leash, just captured by this witch. It's like, that's the association. And I just wanted to be cautious. I only want to do it in an imaginative, fairy tale-like sense, because else you get into discriminating against people, potentially, well, even gender-based, because like most witches would be women or something like that, so there might be something deep-rooted there to look at. But just like this control, it's like, I mean, I've dealt with like control issues with my dad a lot, but we've kind of worked through those. But this is more control of the mind. Like the fairy tale idea of a witch is someone that's got you like in total control of your life, and I write about that a little bit when I started to write about mental illness. Is dang, and even between like that first and second, or second and this episode, I went to my friends in Bellingham. Me and my fiance drove up there, and no, I just went up there for Halloween, and there was mushrooms, because there's fresh like psilocybin mushrooms, and everyone was eating them, and I said, sure, let me do this. I'm already hallucinating like normal life. Let's induce it a little bit tonight. And I ate a bunch, and it did nothing, and then I ate some more and did nothing. But my dreams that night, I just remember the one, it was so vivid, like, because I dream a lot, but this one was just so interesting. Like, I just kind of woke up, and I was in a chair, this red chair, in a small room, and everything was kind of, like, frazzled and light, and the witch has just, like, got me strapped down to this kind of, like, eternal chair in a room, and she's like, is this what you want? And I was like, no, thank you. And that was kind of the entire dream. But then I woke up, and to me, it was a saying, like, don't do mushrooms. So there's probably easier ways to get there, to like not do, you shouldn't do mushrooms. But that was my message on mushrooms. Don't do mushrooms. But yeah, so that's his tone. Going to this hotel, we get there, call, maybe, I don't know if we call, but knock on the door. She just comes out, and she, like, for how slow she's moving, she looks like she's gonna kill us fast, you know. It's like, I don't know. And then she's like, you killed my cat, and that's what she was mad about the most. And she gave us, and she's like, well, can we just have the ID? And then she's like, you gotta move me across the country. And then it's like, where all my stuff, you know. And once we got that ID in my hand, me and my dad both, like, I don't know, like a Quentin Tarantino movie, like, we're just like, let's go. Let's go. Like we just robbed a bank. And we got into the car as fast. And it wasn't from like the legalities of like losing a gal's cat. It was literally a nightmare. When you're wrapped in someone's life, you're like, dude, your life looks like a nightmare. And again, I apologize from the standpoint of like, it's not mental illness, it's not the fact that her brain don't work, it's the fact that I'm hallucinating and then maybe rubbing it off on my dad. It's like, there's plenty of ways I've you know, from an analytical perspective, it's like, it's unfair to put that on other people, especially with, you know, is the same as, you know, saying, why did the lights go out, and then blaming someone with autism, you know. And, that is a, and hopefully they got recorded, because that just sounds like an awful thing, but that has happened. And that's like, even me with my, you know, even just the things that I would say if I'm on like a really high mania, you know, even just slight correlations of similarness, just saying things like, oh, are you going, you know, and then that makes sense to people. They're going to think that might be prophetic, when I'm from the camp that, I don't know, I mean, you're going to win $11 million if you can kind of prove anything. I mean, even that's kind of a natural thing, but still, if you, there's still not much science between psychosis and reality, and how those mesh in a very provable way. And that's it. And then we kind of calmed down from there, and I mean, even just getting on the plane seemed like we were leaving to Canada. You know, the whole rescue just, I mean, to me it felt very real. It's like, I didn't think I'd be rescued until I, you know, felt like I was at home. And that's the story of Baltimore. So this is the first time I kind of told it full. I've told it once to a group. I think it's better with the group, because then they get to maybe like ask questions, and then you can kind of dial you in. But I wanted to go back to Seattle. I mean, I just wanted to, you know, get a week's worth of sleep and go back to my normal life. But parents were definitely not having that, and that's... But it wasn't then that I was ready to leave the house. It was, all my stuff was, I lived in Seattle. But then they said at some, you know, after I got kind of well in Helena, they're like, let's move your stuff from Seattle to Helena. So they just made that decision for me. And that was tough. And, but I'm just glad I was... I mean, like, that's one sane thing that I've done with mental illness. Like, I don't take meds, but I've accepted that kind of support. Like, that's the one type of support that's made the most sense. You're like, oh, well, that's support. It's like, that's concrete. If I'm not on meds, then I definitely need some stability, and my parents provide that, and I'm just happy over the years that I've been able to provide something for them. And, you know, they're at the age where, yeah, it's I do most of the cleaning, and definitely have a job of chores, you know what I mean? Like, and other people can have that. Like, my first mental illness, I worked for that gal. I just gotta check my clock. Yeah, after the first episode, I worked for Rihanna out in Seattle, and that was a live-in. You know, I mean, she wanted me to live in, but she was a hoarder. I was like, Jesus, no. I mean, her room smelled, 'cause she had the 3 cats in her room, and it would just smell to high heaven. So I would wear a respirator in there, and then when I left, you know, I just wear a respirator throughout the whole house. But it was just her room that was the worst. Cats. Ugh. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to work as a live-in, or I don't know. I'm just glad that I'm creative with finding work that's meaningful and also works with my mental illness. And I might call it for the night. That's plenty for me. I got that story on Baltimore. But, I mean, like I said, I could do 200 hours of this. I'm just excited to find a format of, like, documenting. And I mentioned, yeah, if my grandma did 200 hours of talking at a camera, I would definitely listen. You know? So... if I just got a minute, I mean, some of the things on the sheet are like, why do you make decisions? Honestly, I was telling my friends, like, yeah, all the relationships I had, oh yeah, I just get way into, like, you know, one of the girlfriends in college, she made crepes. It's like, yeah, I made crepes after that relationship for the next 10 years. Through 3 different relationships, oh, I made crepes. You know, just things that you take. And then my friends are like, well, that's a terrible way to make decisions. And I was just like, well, but some of the things are pretty useful. This last relationship didn't last long, but I actually started eating meat and feel a lot better from it. So maybe that's a topic for a different time, is like, why do you make decisions? And do you make decisions for rational reasons? Yes and no.